Okay, check 1 2, check 1 2. Mic is up, and the background music is always a little bit messed up for whatever reason. Let me see. Let me see. Oh wow, it's that low. I guess we'll bring it up about this high. Just ambient enough to where it can possibly be heard. Anyway, hey Nuggets, welcome to the food truck. My name is Ruka. So today, well actually, not today. Last week, right? Last week there was news. I think I've been talking about this for a little bit. There was news that Japan is finally opening up around August, like 11, not August, October 11. I am getting my months mixed up. It's the end of August. No, August already passed. What the heck? Anyway, October 11, I think, is when Japan is finally opening up to everyone else in the world. What this means is, so little recap. I know if you've been here on the channel before, I've mentioned this before, but little recap for those who don't know what's going on with Japan and tourism and stuff and why it's such a big deal. Basically, ever since the pandemic started, Japan has been closed, right? They don't want any infections in and stuff like that, yada yada yada. But recently, I think as early as this year, around June, they started opening up tourism to people who went through tour groups and stuff like that. However, the thing with the tour groups is that you're on a strict schedule. You go where the tour group tells you to go to. You eat where the tour group tells you to go eat. Don't really have much free reign. There's no like free time. Everything's controlled by whatever tour group you're with. It's not a pleasant experience to be in unless that's your kind of thing, to be honest. And for most people, that's really not the style of travel they do anywhere. Really, not anywhere. Also, the tour groups are like ridiculously expensive for the amount of time you stay there. I think it's like upwards of $4,000 or $6,000, not that's like including everything, and only for maybe less than 2 weeks, I believe. I'm not entirely sure. Someone would have to fact check me on that one. It's been a while since I've seen anything regarding that. But you can go for much cheaper than that if you do some proper planning, which if we get to the portion where we actually start budgeting a trip on this stream, then we'll do that. I don't know exactly how long the planning portion of this stream is going to take, but if it's not too long, then we'll go into budgeting and stuff like that, which which you might be surprised is actually cheaper than you would think it might cost, because you know Japan supposedly has this reputation of being super expensive to live in, and yeah, it can be if you live there, but at the same time, it's really not that expensive if you take all the other costs into consideration and stuff like that. So we might go over that, we'll see, but we first got to get to the planning part. But anyway, but yeah, they did that. They also made it to where you still have to go through the tour groups, to the travel agencies, and report to them, even though you don't they're not chaperoning you anywhere, but you're still kind of tied to the travel agency and monitored for that kind of thing. It's not the greatest, let's just say. So I mean, of course, no one's gonna bite on those kinds of deals. So finally, just last week, they made it to where you don't have to go through a travel agency. It's travel as it used to be. What that means is if you used to be in a visa-free country, there are certain countries that have an agreement with Japan where you can get in visa-free for 90 days or less for a short-term visit. And 90 days is actually pretty darn generous if you're just visiting Japan. So if you really wanted to get the full Japan experience and have the means to do so, then you can stay a whole 90 days in Japan, go throughout the entire country, or stay in one place and be kind of like a short-term resident or something like that, and then go back. Pretty much. That's kind of neat. That's kind of neat thing. It's something I want to do eventually. But what we're going to be planning for this stream, though, is the title is 14 Days in Japan. How to plan your trip in Japan. Now, minimum wise, I would say 14 days, but we'll get into the whys and hows that is once we get rolling here. Let's see, am I missing anything else before we move on? I think the vaccine situation, so there's no quarantine period. I think they're doing away with the quarantine period. I don't know if they still require the proof of vaccination. Maybe, maybe not, question mark. I'm not exactly sure. I may have missed that part of the announcement. But there's not as many hoops to go through as before. I think before you had to apply for a visa, and then there was certain number of people they allowed into the country. That's all gone. Like I said, visa free if you're in a visa free country, so all you need is your passport, and that basically just takes care of it. Basically just takes care of your entry, as long as you're in that category. For now, for some places you still have to apply for a visa, but it's going to be hopefully the same procedures as last time, before the pandemic started. So I mean, it is what it is, but at the very least, everyone else who wants to visit Japan can do so freely after, I think, October 11. So yeah. Now I think right now the yen is pretty darn cheap, so it's actually a good time to visit if you can, or at least within the next year before it goes back to normal prices, which is, I think the yen is around 140-ish per dollar, which is actually pretty darn low compared to what it usually is whenever I visited, which is around 115 to 120. It doesn't sound like a whole lot, but that's still a huge discount, no matter how you slice it. But anyway, let's get to the planning really quick. I'm hoping this works. It is not switching. Why? Okay, I guess we'll have to do this manually. Where is it? There we go. There we go. And I have to adjust BGM here a second. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. So before we start this whole planning thing, let's just get something out of the way. This planning session is for maximizing the time in each place you're visiting, but at your own pace. Now, I don't know how people typically travel. I think most people just go to one place and stay there. Like, let's say you're in the US, you don't typically go from one city to another. But when you're in Japan, you kind of have a tendency to go from one city to another in the short amount of time that you're there. So, because of that, you kind of have to plan a little bit. Also, hi Bison, welcome, welcome. But yeah, so again, this stream is for maximizing the amount of time you're visiting in each place in Japan because, like I said, if you're like traveling in the States, let's say you're going to Orlando, Florida for Disney World, you're just in Orlando, pretty much. You're probably only like in Orlando for a week. You're probably like in Orlando for a week, and you're gonna be visiting Magic Kingdom, Epcot, whatever theme parks they got over there. Maybe even drop by Universal, but you don't have to like move cities, right? And that's really easy, and you don't have to think about much. In Japan, it's a little bit different. Now, you can go to Tokyo and stay in Tokyo for your entire 1-2 week vacation. However, I do highly suggest exploring outside of Tokyo because Tokyo, as much as stuff that you can do in Tokyo, it's not exactly the best representative of what Japan has to offer. Like, you go outside Tokyo and it's actually a completely different world than what Tokyo can do for you. So I like what Tokyo has to offer. So that's the reason why I say plan your trip, even if you're just going to like 1 or 2 cities in Japan. Plan your trip so you know how long to stay there in each place and whatnot. Speaking of which, so that's my disclaimer. This is for maximizing the time in each place at your own pace. Now, here's the big question. How long do you have, or how long do you want to stay in Japan? Me personally, I want to stay there for as long as I can. But realistically, unless I am retired, I cannot. Or at least maybe not retired. Or if I'm realistically, unless I'm retired or out of a job, I have a lot of money, I cannot stay there for the 90 days I want to stay there. That's just impossible. Absolutely impossible. How long do you want to stay? Yes, immigration forever. Papers, please. I want to immigrate forever. So you want to move there? Yes. Well, that's the ideal, right? Even if you don't want to stay there like forever, being a resident in Japan would be nice, even for like a few years. But you can't really do that realistically unless you go through the JET program or get hired by someone who is willing to sponsor you, which is ridiculously tough, just because there's the language requirement a lot of companies want to have from you. So unless you are, so the easiest way for most people to get in Japan, unless you're like a highly skilled, skilled professor, engineer, something like that, or you have a high Japanese proficiency and you can actually work there. Unless you're one of those things, it's nearly impossible to actually work in Japan or stay there short term. So teaching English is like the easiest path in, and you can do that through several companies. JET program is the easiest one to, maybe not the easiest one, but the best program and most well-known program to do so. But you have to teach English, and you don't really get. You can kind of say where you want to go to, but you may not. the thing I hear a lot is you may not get it, but you will be placed somewhere. So there is that. Anyway, but on a visitor thing, that's a little bit different. So how long do you want to stay there? before we get answer that, we kind of have to. Where is my stuff? We kind of have to get this Excel file. So the reason for this Excel file is this is going to help us figure out and sort out the things we need to do. This is extremely important to do. At least this is what I do when I plan. I don't know how everyone else does it, but this is what I do because I can easily shift things everywhere. So let's just name. Wait, this thing is like on my face. I'm gonna lower it. Let's move you down. There we go. Imagine starting a small business in Japan and that allows you to get a business visa. I don't know if you can do that, to be honest. You can search for that, but I haven't heard of anyone trying to go in that route. I imagine it might be a little bit difficult just because permits are a thing for starting businesses and stuff. But yeah, let's name this file first. Japan Travel Plan. And we will start with, let me see. I need to check something here first. Because I had a sample thing that I was working on, but where did it go? Nope, that's not it. Start a VTuber agency, members include yourself. I think we're gonna need a bit more staff than just ourselves. Okay. Alright, so this is how I was gonna do it. Okay. All right, let's start this out first. So let's just say how many days, number of days that you want to stay in Japan. So we're going to fill this in. How many days we're going to do this for? Let's say 14 days. So let's do 14 days. Can I not do a series here in Google Sheets? I cannot do a series in Google Sheets. We are going to fix that. Yes. There. Let's see. So let's say 14 days. And this is kind of helpful to know when you do your planning. What days are you going to go in there? We'll touch on this later, but this could help a little bit also. Let's see. Where are you going to be? Okay, first of all, tell me, is the Excel sheet visible? I know it's kind of small on the screen, but this is literally how big I can get it without going too small. Because yeah, that's as big as I can get. Otherwise, it's going to be way too small on the screen, especially once we get more stuff on here. It looks okay. All right, maybe I'll bold the headers here once we get started. But number of days, what days are those days? That'll be important later. Where are you gonna go? Wait, where is it? Over here. What are you going to do? And any notes that you want to put there. So step number 1, how long do you want to stay there? Let's say we have 14 days. Okay, let's start off with that. Step number 2, where do you want to go? Here's the thing that's going to maybe screw up a little bit the number of days we want to be there. Here's why I say that. When you're doing your when you're doing your number of days, factor into here the time it takes you to travel to Japan and out of Japan. So on day 1, where are you? You are home, wherever your home is. What are you going to be doing? You are going to fly to Japan. Now, depending where you are in the world, this will make you lose 1 day. Here's why. There's this thing in the world called the International Dateline. You may have heard of this thing. This thing basically makes you either go forward in time, if you're from the US, which I'm assuming most people are. If you're from the US, this will make you go forward in time at least 8 to 12 hours into the future. If you are coming from Europe, you will also go into the future. No, is that in the future? No, you will go into, yes, you will go into the future about the same amount of time. If you're coming from Southeast Asia or Australia, you will probably only lose 1 or 2 hours at most. So don't worry about that if you're from Asia or Australia, around that area. But for most people coming from either Europe or the United States, you will lose 1 day. Or like, let's say the travel time takes 14 hours. That's usually how long it takes for me whenever I go to Japan. Let's say I leave at 6 o'clock in the morning. I typically get there around 2, 3, maybe 4 o'clock in the afternoon the next day. Let's plan a trip to Japan. First, we need to talk about time travel. Exactly. That's pretty much what whenever you're going to Japan, most of the time it will involve some sort of time travel. Time travel is all relative, but in this case, relative is usually going to the future. You usually go into the future when going to Japan, just because Japan is kind of like at the edge of that international, like near the end of the start. Let's say start. Japan is typically at the start of that international dateline, or very, very close to it. So because of that, Japan will almost always be in the future compared to most other places. So you will be losing 1 day. Oh, before we continue, I do need to get to our next point, because I think these are the main points we're going to cover for today. Let me see. There's going to be some spoilers here. Okay. Let's go with this. So, questions. Let's go from the top. I wasn't too sure how to paste this. I didn't have much preparation, but here we go. Several questions. How long do you want to stay there? Let's say 14 days. Longer the better. My recommendation for staying in Japan at minimum, especially if you're traveling from overseas, is at least 14 days. 14 days, to be honest, is a little short for me personally. Like, I don't feel like you get enough time there, but it's a decent enough time, especially if you consider it as an overseas trip. Ideally, me personally, I would like at least 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks. That's a good, solid trip to Japan. If you're working, that may be more than your PTO, or that may blow all of your time off. So it's worth it. It's a worth it trip. Trust me. All right, trust me. That's a worth it trip. Plan to spend, if you can, a good 3 to 4 weeks in Japan. But if you cannot do that, at least 2 weeks. 2 weeks with some caveats, which we'll get into later. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? How long in each area? We'll answer those as we go. So anyway, back to this. When we do this, so we're starting from home, right? Okay, home. On day 2, this is where we actually arrive in Japan. So arrive in Japan. Now what? So depending on where you come from, it is going to be arrive in the afternoon or evening. This is the usual case. So what can you actually do when you actually arrive in Japan? Not a whole freaking lot. Not a whole freaking lot. When you get there, you really just want to get out of the airport. You want to get on the next train or bus to Tokyo, find your place, and basically rest up for the night, because it's been a long 13, 14, maybe 16-hour trip or more. And you really just don't want to do anything else. You can probably, after you check in, you can grab something to eat. But you're not going to be doing a whole lot in your first day in Japan. And this is day 1 of you being in Japan. So first thing you'll be is probably jet lag attack. Actually, for me personally, whenever I go to Japan, I'm not really that much jet lagged. I am maybe sort of a little bit tired, but not exactly jet lagged. And you kind of have to factor getting used to a new time zone in your first couple of days, which we'll get into. And then after you do that for a few days, and because you're out and about all the time, it's easier to get out of that jet lagged to get out of that jet lagged or slightly sluggish state compared to when you go back home. When you go back home, depending on where you're from, you may not be out as much, so you're not going to be recovering as much from that. Um, but yeah, the more here's the number one thing about being jet lagged. The more you're out, the easier it is to adjust back into the time zone you are currently in. No matter whether you're going backwards or forward. That's really the main thing to it. If you don't do that, then you will probably be jet lagged for the next week or two, like I was in my first couple of trips, and still kind of even in the last two trips I did. But if you do this enough, you might get used to it. You might not get used to it. But yeah, that first day, you're just so tired that you just want to go and check into the hotel or hostel, wherever you're staying, and just basically zonk out. Basically zonk out. However, if you have some other documents you need to process, we may or may not be able to get into this stream, but there's this thing called the Japan Rail Pass, that if you are able to use it on your first day in Japan, you'll want to get that thing activated as soon as possible. But anyway, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself when I talk about that. So, now that you're actually in Japan, you're more than likely going to be in Tokyo on your first full day. Your entry point in Japan is either Narita or I think what was the other one? So Narita is like the main airport. Almost everyone goes through. The other airport I think is Haneda. A lot of people say Haneda is closer to Tokyo, but the last time I checked the time it takes to get from either Narita or Haneda to Tokyo itself, it takes at least an hour and a half. That's just how far they are. And when I say an hour and a half, that is either by bus or by train. You will be at least an hour to an hour and a half from the airport. There's no exception to that. Now, I say Narita Haneda as the entry point, the main entry point, because most people will be going through Tokyo. However, I think you can also enter through Osaka. You can also, I think, enter through Fukuoka, or I think in Sapporo. But Sapporo and Fukuoka, those are mainly entry ports for other countries, especially if you're coming from Southeast Asia or something like that. And I've had some family members who have entered through Osaka and not through Tokyo. So there's a few entry points, but most people will be going through Tokyo. Just clarification of that, but we'll assume we're going through Tokyo. Now, on your first day of Tokyo, you might want to go out and about and start seeing stuff. Yes, you can do that. However, I highly suggest just take your time and explore a little bit and recover because you have gone through that trip. And if this is your first time in Japan, everything's gonna be so new to you. Everything's gonna be so new to you. You may as well just give yourself a little extra time and get used to seeing all the different sites. Now you can also, if you want to, if you want to get to the sites that you want to see, let's say you want to go to Shibuya. A lot of people want to go to Shibuya for this scramble crossing and stuff like that, so you can go to Shibuya. Whenever you're doing these whats and stuff, whenever you're doing your activities for the day, you don't have to like do it for like hour per hour or something like that. That's a little crazy. I never ever do that. But I will suggest though, whenever you plan something, plan at least focus on one thing. Focus on one thing for that day you want to do. And if you can do more than, if you find that that one thing that you're trying to do for that day doesn't take a whole lot of time, then go on to the next thing. But give yourself time to do the thing you want to do, see the thing you want to do, and don't rush. Don't rush. A lot of these places in Tokyo easily accessible through the trains through the trains around the city, but it still does take time to travel from one place to another. There's also, you're going to be probably waking up at, I don't know, 8, 9, 10. When you first get there, you'll find that you'll probably be waking up super early. If you go to Japan in summer, keep in mind, in summer the sun rises at 4 in the morning. Think about that. If you're in Airbnb in Japan during the summer and you see the light come through the curtains and you look at your clock, you're probably going to notice it's going to be 4 o'clock in the morning, and you're probably going to say, what the fuck? It's gonna be that early. I think in the winter the sun also sets really early, around 4. I've never seen that myself, but I have seen the sunrise super early. So if you're not a morning person, you're probably going to be for at least if you go in the summer. But anyway, so let's just do this really quick as a rough draft for what we're going to do. So Tokyo, first day, your first full day in Tokyo, probably explore and recover, right? Second day in Tokyo, you can probably, at this point, you'll probably be used to the time zone and whatnot, so you can start exploring whatever you want to explore. So if you didn't go to Shibuya yesterday, you can do Shibuya today. Shibuya doesn't take a whole lot of time to go through, so let's just also add a stop for possibly Harajuku. Possibly also Harajuku for the same day. You can easily do both at the same day. If you try to do a third area, it might get a little bit, I don't know, it might get a little bit late, but I think 2. You can probably do those 2 on the same day. Let's just say. Now that you've actually been in Tokyo for 3 days, Narita, Haneda also being part of Tokyo, you kind of might want to be tempted to stay in Tokyo for, let's just say, a few more days. But my suggestion here is, those extra days you want to spend in Tokyo at the start, move that near the end, because you're going to be coming back to Tokyo anyway. So you might want to move that back to the end, and you can spend more time in Tokyo then. Unless you really like Tokyo that much, which you possibly might. What's going to end up happening is... Where is my sheet? What's going to end up happening is you'll be doing, like, let's say you're in Tokyo for a full 5 days, and then you do Tokyo again for the last 3 days. You don't have a whole lot. You don't have a whole lot for this middle part to really explore. But if this is your first time in Japan, 1 or 2 cities is plenty, I think. But you just won't be able to explore as much. So let's just say you are in Tokyo at the start for 1, 2, 3, 4 full days, and then let's say you go to Kyoto for, I would say, whenever you go to Kyoto, give it a full 4 to 5 days. Probably not more unless you really want to explore it a bit more. But yeah. And let's color code this a little bit, just because it might be a little confusing to look at with all the names. So let's color code Kyoto as green, and let's color code Tokyo as green and Kyoto as orange. Spent too much time in Tokyo on your first visit? Actually, no, I didn't. Actually, no, I didn't. But it has come. It has. What do you call this? It has come through my. How do I want to say this? No, I did not spend too much time in Tokyo. My first time in Japan, I only had like 10 days, because I thought it would be in more. It would be enough, and I don't think I actually got that much time off in the job I was at the time. So I spent the amount of days I thought that was appropriate, and basically what happened was I stretched myself a little bit too thin. I went to too many places in a very short amount of time, which is something I do not recommend at all. Maybe, yeah, I wasn't sure how I was going to do this, but let's just say this, all right? Traveling styles. Let's go with this first. Let's see what I need to make this as. So there's a few traveling styles. Easy. Let's start with easy. Easy would be going to one or two places during the trip. Length of stay doesn't matter. Maybe. Length of stay. No, let's say length of stay is like 45 days each. That's an easy planning. Normally, you typically want to. Well, I mean, not maybe you don't want to typically, but at least for me, it would be beneficial to, let's say, normally you would probably go to 2 or 3 places during a trip. During the trip, length of stay probably around 3 to 4 days in each place, which is reasonable. It's not too long, it's not too short, but it does give you enough time to at least get an idea of what the area is. Maybe not a full idea, but it gets you a good enough taste. So yeah, I want to go to Ikebukuro, Yokohama, Shibuya, Shinjuku, Osaka, Nagoya, and steal the hype mic teams from each respective location. You can go to Ikebukuro, Shibuya, and Shinjuku in one day. Yokohama is probably going to be a trip by itself because it's so huge. Osaka and Nagoya are in 2 different directions from Tokyo. So yeah, good luck with that. That's even if you do one day each, that is quite the trip. Would not recommend. If we have time during the stream, we'll go over timings and such. But yeah. Now, let's see. So we have the easy style, normal style, the ambitious. I would call this the ambitious style. Is like not ambitious, doable. Ambitious but doable. Let's do that. Ambitious but doable is like 3 to 5 places during the trip. Length of stay would probably be about the same as the above, but usually you can only do that if you have like 21 days or so. So 3 to 4 days each. Now, crazy, and I don't recommend this at all, a crazy style would be going to all the places. and typically spending 1 to 2 days each. 1 to 2 days each. That is something you don't want to do, because that is a lot of carrying luggage around, a lot of traveling. You don't really get a full appreciation of the place you're going to. So I don't recommend this. I don't recommend this. Normally, what I would recommend is anything other than crazy is okay. Ambitious but doable is better on a longer schedule. But on a short schedule, like 14 days, you would probably go with either easy and normal. That's a sane way to plan a trip. But yeah, let's just say this is the one. Let's just say for now though, let's go for easy route. This is where you would go. Tokyo, Kyoto, two big two big highlights of Japan that a lot of people go to on their first trip. Details for this. Let's just go through details for this really quick. Let's just go through details. So Ikebukuro, right? Ikebukuro. We could go to Ikebukuro. That's probably like a half day at most. So you would have to fill in the other half with something else. I recommend, let's just say Shimokitazawa is a nice place to visit if you're really into just I don't know what the best word is. I don't want to say hipster. I don't want to say chic, but it's a nice calm neighborhood to just like stroll around in. That's perfectly acceptable. It's just a nice place. It's just a nice place to visit, but I think it's mostly residential plus like maybe not a date spot, but a nice place to hang out in Tokyo. But anyway, I'm kind of going all over the place here with the planning. And me personally, I would not do like more than this on your first day unless you have something else. So let's just do question mark here. I would probably do explore and see. If you want to do this kind of schedule, it would be this. And then you go to Kyoto. Now Kyoto, I think, is about 1.5 to 2 hours from Tokyo, so you can actually go do a pretty decent amount of stuff. But unless you want to catch the 8 o'clock train, unless you want to catch the 8 o'clock train going to Kyoto, which is kind of super early and you might not be used to it, I would probably suggest leave around 9 to 10 in the morning. And let's just say you have, I mean, think about this really quick. If you're traveling by yourself and you have the discipline to do so, yeah, sure, leave as early as you want, but check in, they're not going to allow you to check in until like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. You can still leave your luggage in the place you're staying at once you actually get there, but just keep in mind, probably won't be able to check in until later in the afternoon or something. So luggage is going to be an issue. Luggage is going to be an issue. But let's say Kyoto. What would be a good thing to do when you get to Kyoto to start off with? Oh wait, I forgot something. I forgot something super important. I forgot something super important. I should have started off with this. Okay, so whenever you're going to Japan for the first time, let's back up again. You may not know where to go or what to do. That's probably fair for a lot of people. You may not know where to go or what to do. You may have seen some travel shows. That's a good source of like ideas of where to go and what to do. But if you don't watch travel shows and you just kind of suddenly, like, no travel shows, if you're not doing like an anime pilgrimage, there are some people that go to Japan for anime pilgrimages. What that is they hit certain locations in their favorite anime and visit them. I've done that before, actually. I've done that for Zombieland Saga, so I actually went to Saga Prefecture for that. So that's one way to do a trip if you're so inclined to do so. But if you had no idea how to go about your trip to begin with, the one place I suggest most people look into, I should have started off with this. Sorry that the lesson plan is a little bit screwy, just because I don't know how to do this. My pilgrimage would take a month probably. So the one place I recommend most people to go through, and there's other sites besides this, but this is the one I use a lot, is japanguide.com. JapanGuide.com. This is really handy because you can pick like major cities that you want to go to, major regions of Japan that you want to go to. Let's say you want to go to Tokyo. It gives you ideas on what you can do and see in Tokyo, like Akihabara. You know, a lot of people want to go to Akihabara. Tsukiji Market's another popular place in Tokyo. The Imperial Palace. Asakusa is also a really nice place to visit in over there. Been to it a couple of times, and it's really nice, really. Tokyo Sky Tree. I've actually never been to the Tokyo Sky Tree before, but I have seen it around town. Just not my thing. Western Tokyo, Shibuya. This is where a lot of people would like to visit too. Shinjuku. Honestly, I don't know what's in Shinjuku. Shinjuku, I think, is mostly shopping and businesses. But for me, from what I heard about Shinjuku Station, is the main highlight of Shinjuku is the station itself, because it's so massive that you can literally get lost down there in the station. But there's so much things to see and do in the station itself. Never actually done it myself. I've only passed through, but that's something you can do if you were so inclined. Harajuku, yep, there's Harajuku over here. But this will give you like ideas of where you can go, and even outside of Tokyo, they give you ideas for that too. Like if you want to go to Disney Sea for whatever reason in Japan, because I don't know why you want to do that when you have Disney at home. I don't know. But there's that. There's also the Ghibli Museum. Never been there myself, but I hear it's pretty good. But I think you have to get tickets for this ahead of time. I do think so. But yeah, lots of neat information here. You can check it by city, you can check it by region. Let's see. Let's go to one region of Japan really quick. A region of Japan I've been to before and kind of like, just because it's like a bit naturey, is Tohoku. Tohoku is the place in Japan you would see the most snow if you were there for the time when it actually snows. But also, it's really good for onsens during the cold months and stuff like that. And I've been to a few places here. and enjoyed it. It's mostly a rural area, but there's a few spots that would recommend definitely. Like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I want to go to. Well, no, I've been to Shimakita Hanto. It's so far up north, but there's that. If you like nature, there's the place to go for sure. You can also go through this site, go through interest if you like to see temples. They have a whole list of temples that might be an interest to you. Let's see, art, culture, traditions, if you like to do arts and crafts stuff. They have events, and I think they also list some festivals here that you can drop in on during the time you visit. Almost any time during the year, there's going to be at least one festival somewhere. So if you want to plan your trip to see a festival, that's definitely something you can do. It's pretty interesting, actually. Hiking is a huge thing in Japan, so you can also do that and list here how difficult the trails are and such. But for our purposes right now, bookmark this site, japanguide.com. You can plan your trip here. You can see what they recommend to go to. This is a good starting point if you're new to Japan. Even if you're not new to Japan, there's still a good place to get ideas, and then you can go from there. But for our sample trip here, so we're going to Kyoto next, right? So we're going to Kyoto. Let me see. Yeah, we're going to Kyoto. Let me see if we can shrink this a little bit so we can do this side by side. It's a little bit. Yeah, I don't want to make this too small, but yeah, let's try this. Okay, so let's go to Kyoto. Now, Kyoto is mostly a cultural city. So you're going to be seeing a lot of temples everywhere. Now, I'll be honest about this. Outside maybe one or two temples, which is probably Kiyomizudera. This is the maybe one temple that's kind of interesting. But typically, if you see one temple, you see all of the. You've probably seen most of the temples already. They kind of built all the same. But the thing is, most of them are, you know, I mean, they're part of the culture. They're part of the history. Each one serves a different purpose. Has I guess a different deity or something that they're built for. But outside of the temples, though, when you get to Kyoto on that first day, you can get there and start exploring right away, just because you're probably adjusted to the time, and you don't really want to waste too much time once you're actually there. But before actually going out, I would recommend checking the station. Most people would not think about checking a train station, but the Kyoto train station is actually pretty interesting to look at. Kyoto Station. I have some pictures, but I don't know if I'll be able to find anything. Kyoto Station. This is Kyoto Station, or at least part of Kyoto Station. It is gigantic. There's a lot of shops here. There's a lot of places to actually explore through the sides. For the most part, people will just go through here to get on trains to the next area. But if you have time and just want to relax, this is actually not a bad place to relax. There's a lot of food shops and stuff. And if you're kind of like, let's just say you have a couple hours before you go off to your next place, or you're at the end of the day and don't really want to go out to the streets and find someplace to eat there, this is another good place to go to. But it's gigantic and has a lot of spots that you can check out. So, would recommend that. I know it's an intentional beauty shop, but wow, it's nice architecture. It really is. It really is. Let me see if I can find a picture of mine. Let me see if I can find a picture of mine that I can show on here. Let's see. Do not show yet. But I've taken plenty of shots of Kyoto Station from the inside, and the shots that they show in this website, not really an exaggeration. It really looks as grandiose as it does. And I think as impressive this one looks, I think the one in Kanazawa, which is further up north, I think that is officially Japan's most beautiful, most pretty. I don't know how else you want to say it. It is Japan's most best station, I guess, best looking station. But here's a picture I took. And it's way too big. Of course, it's way too big. Here we go. This is a picture I took of Kyoto Station from the top. As you can see, the architecture from the top. This is like, I think this is like no. How many stories up is this? I want to say it's like 5, at least 5 stories up. Hey, workshop, welcome. I want to say this is like 5 stories up, and there's like this huge arch that just kind of covers the top there. And it's impressive to look at, among other things. And let's see. Once you actually get to that area, there's even other stuff further up that these stairs just go like there's like stairs that keep going further up onto like a flat garden. I guess it's like a garden area on top of the station. You wouldn't think of it, but there actually is kind of a sort of a garden up top. And it's kind of neat how they build everything vertical because, you know, Japan's a small country, they gotta build vertical. And when you look from the top, you see you can pretty much see almost all the station from up there. It's an amazing sight to see. So it's a good place to explore. The station itself is a good place to explore if you just want to do some exploration. So yeah, there's that. Well, where's my Excel sheet? So the station on your first day would not be a bad place to go if you just want to do that. There are other options, but let's just say let's just say day 1 Kyoto Station would be a good place to go. Day 2, I highly recommend going to Inari. I don't know if you've ever seen these. The Fushimi Inari Shrine. I don't know if you've ever seen these red gates. These are called Torii gates. And the Fushimi Inari Shrine in particular has these rows and rows of gates that you go through. And if you were so inclined, you can like follow a trail. You can follow a trail after these gates to get to a temple up on the top. See a good view of Kyoto from high above. It's a nice view. It's a nice place to visit, and that would take you pretty much the entire day if you go to Inari, just because it takes that long to get up there. I'm not gonna say how long it's gonna take to get up there, but I've done it twice now, I think, and I would do it a third time if given the chance. But first time visitors, I would definitely recommend them to go here. Now this is like midway towards the top, and most people, once they get to this part of Inari, they stop and go back down, which is perfectly fine, because going further up is a bit of a challenge. But I do say, if you're up for that challenge, go do it. But you're not going to be in Japan for that long. You may as well make some challenges for yourself while you're there. That's all I'll say. That's all I'll say about that. It's fun though. Ah, jeez, I need some water. All right, Inari. Let's just say we go to Inari for your second day of Kyoto. Inari. Now we got 3 more days in Kyoto. We can let's just say you don't want to go through the rest of Kyoto, or if you want to, you can. Kyoto by itself is kind of big, to be honest, and there's some stuff that you might want to like check out there. But I think in Kyoto itself, let's see, what can we find in Kyoto itself? What can we find in Kyoto itself? In Kyoto itself. So Kyoto is kind of huge, actually, and there's like smaller towns outside around Kyoto. Might as well call it a local hiking site. It pretty much is. It pretty much is. If you've been to Inari before, you know what that means, to be honest. Yeah, Inari Shrine is great, but it's not for the faint of heart. Let's just say it's not the most strenuous hike ever, but let's just say it's for first timers. It might not be an easy hike. But yeah, like I said, Kyoto has a bunch of, what do you call this? Has a bunch of shrines and temples. May not be your thing, to be honest. The Kyoto Imperial Palace might be worth it to visit. I've been to this place before. Basically what it is, it's a giant park around where the old palace used to be. For a little history, if for anyone who's not familiar with Japan, is Kyoto used to be the old capital of Japan, and the Imperial Palace, which is apparently still there, is now basically a park for everyone to visit, and the park is gigantic. It is absolutely gigantic. This map does not show how huge it is. I think from one end to the next, it's anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour. So yeah, it's pretty huge. And a lot of people use this place for various things, events, just to relax in. I think this place might be also good for Hanami and stuff like that, but it's gigantic. There's nowhere else to say it. Even if you don't go to the palace itself, just walking around the garden is pretty nice. Just taking it in the atmosphere and stuff. So yeah, there's that also. But let's see, what else can we do? Nishiki Market. Been to Nishiki Market before, and let's just say because there were so many tourists, it wasn't exactly the best experience. Basically, I think what Nishiki Market is a bunch of shops and restaurants, mostly sells your local grocery stuff. The locals would used to buy stuff here, but ever since the huge influx of tourists before the pandemic, it got a little bit difficult to do business there. But now it should be a little bit more. It should be a little bit easier to go through. They do have a bunch of souvenir shops too for the tourists, but it should be better, at least at the start of this trip after the pandemic. But it might get a little bit more difficult to go through. If you like markets, seeing what people buy for groceries and stuff like that, and just traditional foods, it's a nice place to go to. If you're not into any of that, there's a whole bunch of temples, but honestly, there's only maybe a couple of temples I would recommend going to. Let's see. But outside of Kyoto itself, there is, well, they do also show you the festivals that you can run into, but the festivals are like only at certain times of the year. So if you're not there for that certain time of the year, then you're most likely gonna miss out. Now, for side trips from Kyoto, the easiest ones to do, and probably the one that most people have heard about, is Nara. Nara is where all the deer are. The deer are kind of feisty. They will bite your bags. They will take snacks from you. So be careful when you visit there. But other than that, it's an interesting place to visit. Maybe half a day visit. So that is a bunch of exploration stuff to do. Let's just say for the sake of the schedule, that you go to Nara and then maybe somewhere else on that same day. I think what I did one time was we went to Nara and Uji. Uji may not be a name that most people are familiar with, but if you've ever seen K-On!, that anime K-On!, I think that, no, is it K-On? No, it's not K-On!, it's Hibike Euphonium. Euphonium. Uji. It's actually based in Uji. Uji is basically the green tea capital of Japan. You may have seen some products with the label Uji green tea, and that just means it's green tea from Uji. And the reason why a lot of products have that is because green tea is kind of famous around here. High quality tea, that's apparently what they're famous for. So it might be worth a visit. When you do go to Uji though, there's going to be a lot of shops in the tourist area of Uji where they sell a bunch of green tea flavored drinks, snacks, restaurants where green tea is infused into their food, like green tea ramen. I've had the green tea ramen. Green tea desserts, like not necessarily matcha, okay, just green tea. This particular green tea. So most places in Japan have like a specialty, either a special dish or a special area. So yeah, in Uji, it's the green tea. That's what they're most known for. Almost every single town, almost every single town, or at least almost every single tourist place has some sort of specialty. So that's something to keep in mind. Look for the specialties if you have no idea what to do, or just go through this site. But yeah, you can also from what do you call this? From Kyoto, you can also go to Osaka. If you go to Osaka though, let's just say you go to Osaka on your next day. Osaka itself is a day trip. Now, you can go to Osaka. You can move to Osaka and stay there. But I think for during your trip, you can move to Osaka and stay there during your trip instead of just staying in Kyoto and commuting back and forth from Kyoto. I mean, if you think about it, Kyoto and Osaka are about 1.5, I think about an hour and a half apart from each other. So it's a bit of a commute. So it may not be the best thing to do, but you can do it if you really wanted to. But if you want to save that 3 hours trip, you can stay there in Osaka. And the main thing in Osaka, really, other than the Universal Studios, but why would you go to a Universal Studios in Japan? I don't know. Or Disney in Japan, unless you just really want to. The main thing to do in Osaka is visit the Osaka Castle. I have not done this, but there's a castle in Osaka, or the main place most people go to is Namba. Namba is, I don't know how to describe Namba. Namba is basically a shopping district where a lot of tourists go to, but it's also a shopping district not just for tourists, but it's also for the locals. This is also where you get a bunch of food from. Osaka is known mainly for its food. Mainly for its food whenever you do visit. So there's a bunch of stuff here that you can go to. Amerikamura, I don't think I've ever been there before. Denden Town, I think is the equivalent of Akihabara in Osaka. Kurumon Market, the equivalent of Tsukiji Market from Tokyo. Bunch of parks, theaters, and stuff like that. Basically a bunch of stuff to explore, but mainly for most people, Osaka is for the food and a little bit of other stuff. That's really what Osaka is mainly for. So at most I would say a day trip, or maybe 2 days at most there. But where was it you tried the lobster ice cream? Oh, the lobster ice cream. Let's go to where the lobster ice cream was. This is gonna be very far. This is gonna be very far. It's not an easy trip from either Kyoto or Tokyo. When you go to the place for the lobster ice cream, you're gonna be staying there for a couple of days. And let me show you why. So the place I went to is Ise. Now, Ise, if we look at the map, let me see if we can find the map. Access. Okay, let me get Google Maps really quick, because it'll be easier to show you through there. Ise Prefecture. Ise Prefecture in Japan. This here is Ise. This here is Osaka. Kyoto is all the way over here. This is Kyoto. This is Osaka. This is Ise. Tokyo's all the way over here. Do you see where this is? Very hard to get to. Why? Because it's in a rural area and not a whole lot, and a lot of mountains apparently. So not very easy to get to. If even from Kyoto to Ise, let's just say. Ise Mie, Japan. By train. Is about 2.5 hours. From Tokyo, which is what I did the first time. Tokyo. 4.5 hours. And that's using the Shinkansen. Not an easy place to get to. And the main reason why I even wanted to go there, was because I wanted to visit the Ise Grand Shrine. This is Mie Prefecture, Ise-shima, which is where the shrine is. And this is like the main Shinto shrine in in Japan. There's two shrines, the outer shrine and the inner shrine. And I think they're both in different locations. The inner shrine is the main one. But for the most part, there's an area there that you can't take photographs or videos because it's like prohibited. And they do watch you. You can't sneak. You really can't sneak a photo. And really, you shouldn't. Just be respectful. Don't do it. But it's basically this giant complex by a river. And there's nature all around you. And it's basically a pilgrimage that you do. It's just very small pilgrimage, but you could do it very easily. It's just a ways to get to from most of the major cities. But really, I just wanted to see what this place was about, and also explore the town nearby. This is where I got the lobster ice cream. Oharai Machi. It's basically just a small shopping district right next to the shrine where visitors would go to. Whenever you do go to this place though, it is like 99% Japanese visitors or locals that are in this area. Most of the time you will not see the usual tourists. So if you want to get away from the usual tourists, try this place, because it does give you a sense of where people do go to visit around Japan. You don't have to stay here. I think where I stayed, you can stay in Ise City, but where I went was around this place called, let's see, Futami no Ura. It's a very small station right next to the ocean and pretty darn far, to be honest. I had other plans to be when I went here other than the shrine. I kind of also wanted to visit the oyster farms around the area and sample the seafood around the area, but I didn't really have that time. So, sounds interesting, but you'll stick out like a sore thumb probably. It depends. It depends. I'll be perfectly blunt about this. If you look like a foreign person, you will look like a sore thumb. Me, myself, however, I blend in. I blend in. I think there was only like one old guy that that I ran into in the outer shrine. He was just doing his daily hike, daily walk, daily hike, whatever you want to call it. Daily walk, let's just say. He was a dentist in Ise. A really old person. I think he might have been his 80s or 90s when I met him. I forgot his name by now. But he was this really kind old man. And he could speak English very well. which is unusual for people all the way out here in the basically boonies of Japan. But yeah, it was a very interesting moment. I don't have the picture. Someone else has the picture, but I mean, it's interesting what could happen if you let yourself be in situations where you can explore. That's all I have to say about that part. It's really interesting, especially if you're like traveling in a small group, let's say 1 or 2 people, maybe even 3, maybe not more than 3 because people tend to get intimidated after that point. But it's just interesting what could happen. You meet different people while you travel. It's part of the reason why I like traveling here. It's interesting. But yeah, anyway, from Kyoto you can explore Kyoto itself. You can go to Inari, that's like a day trip. Nara, Uji, recommended there. Osaka, easy to go to from Kyoto. And then you have a free day in Kyoto here to do whatever. There's one place there's one place I recommend visiting in Kyoto while you are there. Or you can go to like other towns. Like I said, this site is very helpful. Let's see, where is that? Nijo Castle. Nijijo. There you go. Nijo Castle. So this was one of the first places I visited in Kyoto. The first time I visited, I had no idea. Actually, the first time I visited Kyoto, I had no idea where to go, what to do. They do have these like, what do you call this? Guidebooks, pamphlets that you can get right outside of the train station. And it was very helpful as far as figuring out what you can do. Like, even if you have no idea what to do and you get to Japan, there will always be some sort of travel guide, like a pamphlet or something, at the train station that you can look at and get some ideas. The locals will know what might be interesting in the area. So some stuff that's on this some stuff that you see on this site, most people will already know about, but there are other things that's not on the site that the locals will be able to tell you where to go and stuff. So that's one thing. But this place is pretty interesting to visit. It's like an old castle that you can that you can explore. It's really super old, but still very well maintained. I think they maintain the place, and has a nice garden. Even has a what do you call it? A rest area at the end of the garden where you can like get shaved ice and stuff. It's pretty neat. It's pretty neat actually. But yeah. But let's just say on your last day at Kyoto, explore ? Explore. This is just a sample. Explore. Do whatever. Explore. And then you go back to Kyoto the next day after you're done with to Tokyo after you're done with Kyoto. Recommendations here would be save 1 day for shopping. Maybe not the day you come back, but you can if you want to. But save 1 day for shopping. Get all the souvenirs you want. Get all the souvenirs you want and can fit in your luggage. Basically, what can you fit in your luggage? That's the souvenirs you get. The souvenirs in Japan are actually pretty ridiculous. A lot of the souvenirs are like snack type souvenirs that you can give to people, because these are the souvenirs that people, even Japanese people, get for whenever they go out of town. They get these omiyage, the souvenirs. They get them for their friends, relatives, co-workers, and whatnot. And that just basically says you know, you're just giving a gift to whoever you may want to or have to give have to give gifts to. But reserve 1 day for shopping. These are the good same souvenirs that locals can get as well as you. So do that. Pretty interesting. And then you can do whatever for the last few days. So do whatever, explore. Let's just say explore when on your return trip. Return to Tokyo. And then let's see, how many days in Japan have we already done? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So this would be your return trip. Narita. Return. So return trip, explores, let's just say do other things you couldn't do the first time around. So whatever you didn't do on your first half of the Tokyo trip, you do in the second half of your Tokyo trip. It's not as many days, but this will at least give you a little bit of time to do some last minute shopping, last minute exploration, say goodbye to Japan until next time. Say goodbye to Japan until next time. And then when you come back, you might have a better idea what to do. Now, this is like just a 14-day trip. A very easy 14-day trip. 2 cities, mainly Tokyo and Kyoto. That's the beginner course. That is the beginner course that, you know, I would recommend for most people. Now I put days here because depending on the days, let's just say depending on the days, that might change how you plan your trip. So Saturday, Sunday. I wonder if I can do a series here. Let's see if we can do a series. Yes, we can. So, depending on what day you go there, let's say it's a holiday or a weekend, the number of people that you're going to be running into in attractions and restaurants and stuff like that, that could affect some of your travel plans, because the locals, especially the retirees, will be traveling domestically, and you will have to take into account how the people travel, where they like to go during certain times of the year. Let's just say during August. No, let's back up a bit. Maybe not even August. Let's say in May, Golden Week. You probably heard of Golden Week before if you've played a bunch of gacha games, Golden Week specials. If you've watched a bunch of anime, you probably heard of Golden Week there. Golden Week is this like week-long series of holidays that Japan does. A lot of people like to travel around this time to various places in Japan. So, like locals mainly. Locals like to travel throughout Japan for various things, visit family, do things that they don't normally do. So be aware of that. Weekends, of course, are going to be times where a lot of people are going to be out and about. So if you want to be in a quieter place and not around people, keep in mind your weekends. Saturday and Sunday, keep in mind your weekends, especially Sunday. And then the weekdays are a bit more quiet. Now, I will say though, if you're in Japan for any longer than a week, you are probably going to have to do you're probably going to have to do laundry at some point. If you are in a hotel, laundry is going to be a little bit more difficult because typically hotels don't have a laundry facility. If you're in a hostel, they should have a laundry facility, so that'll be easier to do, but the space is limited. And depending on how many people are staying in the hostel, you're going to have to take turns with all the other people who are staying there. Like, you know, when to use it and stuff like that. Let's say you're in an Airbnb. in an Airbnb, you may or may not have a washing machine in the place. I have been in Airbnbs where there have been washing machines, and I have been Airbnbs where there weren't any washing machines. Now, I did not mention dryers at any point in time. That's because, well, actually, I take it back. In hostels, there will be dryers. But if you're staying in an Airbnb, most likely there will not be any dryers if you do happen to have a washing machine in the place you're staying, because most people just don't have them. I don't exactly know the reason why. Maybe it's space reasons, maybe it's electricity reasons, but most people typically don't have dryers. So when you do wash, you will have to hang your clothes out to dry. And I have done that before. It was interesting. If you're not used to it, it's interesting. If you're used to it, then you're used to it. But I just kind of had to make sure that my clothes were like, I just had to make sure my clothes didn't fly off into the wind if it was a windy day. Whenever I did that, and make sure it wasn't raining whenever I tried to dry my clothes out. So that's a challenge. There are also laundromats though, if you can find a laundromat around the area, which I have also done, that will have both the dryer and washer, so keep that in mind. The nice thing about the laundromats in Japan, you do not have to buy any separate detergents or stuff like that. The detergents are automatically added in the washer. That is a whole step that you don't have to think about. So that's great. Do you have a dryer? I have a dryer here. I have a dryer in my place, yes. Washer and dryer. But yeah, if you have to find a laundromat in Japan, even in the hostels, I think even the hostels this is the situation. You do not have to buy your own detergent. You just don't have to buy your own detergent. It's that easy. It's that easy. It's quite the experience, actually. I kind of liked it. I like the whole laundromat experience in Japan. It's just different. But yeah, you do have to probably whenever you like do your planning here, you probably have to like plan a laundry day somewhere. Let's just say on every 7th day, you might want to plan a laundry day. And whenever you do plan a laundry day, I don't know how long that's going to take, but expect it to be like a morning to do all your laundry you need to do, a week's worth of laundry. So that might change your plans a little bit. Just saying. Oh, yeah, just saying. That might affect plans a little bit. But yeah, this is like a very simple trip that you can do for 14 days in Japan. Return, let's just say return, and most likely when you return to wherever you came from, you will not lose a day. You will arrive same day at night. That's been my experience typically. You arrive same day at night. Let's say you leave the airport. Let's say you leave Narita Airport around 5 p.m. You might arrive back in your home place at 8 or 10 p.m. That has happened to me before. So it's time travel, but it's kind of like a time stasis when you go back. I feel like you would need like 1 day after vacation to recuperate before going back to work though. Absolutely. Absolutely. And during these plans, you will want to do that. Home. Recover. So your 14 days in Japan is just not 14 days of your trip. I would like to drill this into everyone right now. Your 14 days in Japan, all right? This is 14 days, including your arrival, including your return back home. Is not just 14 days. Actually, it's less than 14 days if you think about it. You're only there for 12 days. You lose 2 days just for traveling. So if that bothers you, keep in mind that, and maybe try to stay a little bit longer than just the 14 days that you tell the customs guy that you're going to be there. So plan for 16 if you really want to stay a full 14 days. Otherwise, you will only get 12 because your arrival and return will eat up 2 days. And of course, if you once you actually get back home, you don't want to return back to your routine right away. Let's say you work. Do you really want to work the next day? No, of course not. You will, when you get back, you will absolutely be jet lagged. At least I was. I kept on waking up at 3 in the morning. It was not fun. I could not sleep. I woke up at 3 in the morning every day for at least 2 weeks. If you're not out and about normally and you just go to work, it's even tougher. It's even tougher. Holy crap. Just a fair warning about that. But yeah. But as far as the trip itself, hey, no, this is pretty easy. This is pretty easy. Now, if I were to like make the trip itself, if I were to modify this trip into something a little bit more varied, something a little bit more something a little bit. So this would be like the beginner, right? This is the beginner. What do you call this? The beginner schedule for someone who's new to Japan. Keep it easy. Go to like 1 or 2 places, or if you are with someone who is a bit more experienced in the Japan tripping things, like let's say you were going with me. Let's say you were going with me. We would still do Tokyo. Okay, I'm gonna remove the whats and notes for now. For 14 days, let's say we only had 14 days using this schedule. We would still go to Tokyo, but we would not stay there for too long. So let's also replace Haneda and Narita with Tokyo, because that's technically still part of, not really part of Tokyo, but you can consider as your stay in Tokyo. So because of that, first day, arrive in Japan, don't really do much of anything. Second day, you get what do you call this? What did I say? What did I say up here? Not recover, but adjust to new place. So you do that, and then maybe visit places you want to go to. Maybe visit places you want to go to. And then on your third day, start going to the first place. And then we get out Tokyo right away. Let's say we get out Tokyo right away. And then we would do Kyoto for, let's say, 4 days. Let's say we do Kyoto for 4 days. And then we do our Kyoto thing for the 4 days. From here, I would actually recommend, depending on which way you want to go and where you want to end up. If you want to go like back towards Tokyo, so let me get out the map really quick. Japan map. So from Tokyo over here, you go to Kyoto, right? And let's just Tokyo to Kyoto. So Tokyo for this first few days, and then you go to Kyoto. Okay, now here's a decision. Which way do you want to go? Do you want to go further south, explore the south, or do you want to slowly make your way back to Tokyo, or go north and then come back to Tokyo? Now for this part, I do, even for a first trip, I do recommend visiting Hiroshima. And Hiroshima by itself can be actually a 3-day trip. Hiroshima is a 3-day trip. What would you actually do in Hiroshima though? When you first arrive in Hiroshima, a very easy thing to do once you arrive there is visit the atomic bomb dome. Now what that is this thing. I could tell you, I could like tell you all the places you should try to visit, but it doesn't really help if I don't show you. But the Atomic Bomb Dome, otherwise known as the Peace Park Memorial, is basically the area where they commemorate where the atomic bomb was dropped. It sounds weird, but it's basically a reminder that bad things happen and you recover from it, and we never want it to happen again. That's what the memorial is. It's basically this giant park. It's this giant park commemorated to that one single bad event. They even have a building from that time when it dropped as a reminder of what it was, basically. And there's like a museum. You can go through the museum. This is like what you would do on your first day, just as a what do you call this, as a welcome to Hiroshima kind of thing. And then a couple of other things you could do. There is a place nearby called Miyajima in Hiroshima, near Hiroshima. This is another popular place a lot of people like to go to when they're in the area. Miyajima, I think, is most famous for its floating torii gate over here that you see in the water. It's not really floating, but basically what happens in this area is the water like goes in and out depending on the tides, and I've been there when the tide was low, so you can actually go up to this gate, and there's a bunch of little fiddler crabs in the sand, which is kind of neat. But as the tide comes in, and you will see it come in if you stay there long enough, which you most likely will, you start seeing this place fill up with water. And the only way you can even get to this place is through a ferry, which is kind of neat. It's a neat experience to begin with. And there's a bunch of stuff to explore in the area, which is a day trip by itself. And one more place you can go to while you're in Hiroshima, which you may or may not have heard of, and it's worth a day trip in my opinion, is Rabbit Island. Rabbit Island. I would actually recommend this for a first timer if you like animals of any kind. There are also cat islands around Japan. I have not been to any of them, mainly because they're kind of far out. But Rabbit Island is this place a few hours out from Hiroshima, and you have to like take a train, you have to take a ferry. It's a doable day trip, but there's a bunch of these wild rabbits on that island. I don't think anyone lives there except for these rabbits, basically, and a few facilities for whatever reason. But these guys are not scared of people. They will come up to you, and they know you have food, because a lot of people will bring like lettuce and stuff and cabbage from the mainland and feed it to the rabbits. You're kind of encouraged to do that because there's little vegetation around the area anyway, so you're kind of encouraged to feed them the stuff that you have. I think the one thing you're not allowed to do with these rabbits is pick them up and pet them. But if they approach you, they approach you. But you're kind of not allowed to touch them. But hey, you're surrounded by rabbits, and it's kind of a neat experience. But yeah, you kind of go on a ferry to get there, and it's a nice place to explore. And there's a history behind this place if you're willing to explore that. But yeah, cat islands. There are actually I think I heard there's like at least 3 cat islands, maybe 4. But the 2, I think the most famous cat island might be in oh my gosh, that's so far. This is so far. Miyagi. Where is Miyagi? Where is our map? Miyagi. Where is Miyagi? All the way up here. Let's get a map from Tokyo just to show where that is. So apparently, is there no way to get there by train? Hold up. Is there no, oh my gosh, there's no way to get there by train. But anyway, there's probably a way to get up there, and I'll show you a resource in a bit of how you plan the routes and stuff. Google Maps is an okay place to do routes, but it doesn't tell you everything. But it's an okay place if you want to get an idea of where things are located. But Miyagi is over here, and apparently there's off Miyagi, there's a island called Tashiro Island. There's also another cat island somewhere. But it's basically a island, mostly abandoned, filled with cats. I guess there's a few people, so it's not abandoned. I've never been here myself, but, mostly cats outnumber people. There's not a whole lot to do around here, but if you are wanting to find a place where a lot of cats are, and it's mostly only cats, then this is one of the places you can go to. I think there's another one. There is another one. Where is it? No, not that one. Not this one. Miyazaki. Aoshima Island. This is the other cat island I was thinking of. Miyagi Prefecture. Where are you? No, that's Miyagi. Miyazaki. I'm thinking Miyazaki. Miyazaki. No. Miyazaki Prefecture. All the way over there. All the way down here. From Tokyo to over here in Fukuoka, that's a 6-hour trip. That's a 6-hour trip by itself. And then from Fukuoka to Miyazaki, that's another 6-hour trip. Which is kind of crazy if you think about it. But it's because this place is so mountainous and so out of the way. It's it's a little hard to get to. But Miyazaki and let's see, Aoshima Island. Let's see, Fukuoka Aoshima Station. To get to where the cats are from Fukuoka, I think is about 4 hours just to get to the other cat island. I don't know which one's the better cat island, but if I had to guess, despite how far this is, this might be the easier to access cat island, if only because you don't have to take a ferry. I know that sounds strange, considering how far this is from Tokyo. But if you're in this area, this is the cat island you might want to go to. If you're up north, the cat island you want to go to is somewhere around here. Somewhere around here. I think there is a I think there is a closer cat island to Tokyo in Enoshima. Let me see. Tokyo, Enoshima. Yeah, so this would be the other closer cat island from Tokyo. It's still kind of far, 2 hours away, but it's an easy day trip. It's an easy day trip. But I don't know how many cats this has compared to the other places. So these are some steep time costs for cats. Yes, it is. Yes, it is a steep time cost for cats. And that would be totally up to you. If you have 21 days or so, it's a lot easier to justify, especially if you're in the area. Like, we could let's just finish this one really quick. Because there's one more thing I want to add to this. On your first trip to Japan, is this something I didn't do because I didn't have enough time? Every time on your first trip to Japan, I would always recommend going to an onsen. If you don't know what an onsen is basically a hot springs. A hot springs that is usually attached to some sort of inn. Let's just call it an inn. Technically, it's called a ryokan. A ryokan is not really a high class inn, but let's just say it's a place of relaxation. It is a place where you basically get full room and board for however long you stay there. But most people, when they go to a ryokan, it's a one-day thing. You go to the ryokan for one purpose only. It's to relax. And even on a 2-week trip, you will need that day of relaxation and think about nothing else. So that's why I recommend build a day in to visit an onsen. If for no other reason than to give yourself time to relax from all the craziness that you went through for the past 7 days plus or so before you go back to Tokyo and do your last minute shopping and sightseeing and stuff like that. Just because it's traveling can be stressful and you do need that time. Now, where would you go for the route we're doing right now? Tokyo, Kyoto, Hiroshima. One place that's easily accessed from there is Hakone. Hakone is a well-known resort town in the area, and let's see, if you have heard of Hakone before in any anime, it's probably Eva. Or at least you've probably seen some scenes from Eva in Hakone. But Hakone is mainly known for its hot springs, and this is the reason why most people go here. You can also hike from here to go to, what's the place called? Yamashina? Is it Yamashina? Where is Fuji? But it's part of the Fuji, Mount Fuji area. Probably, I'm not sure if you can, how far Mount Fuji would be from here, but Mount Fuji itself would be a day trip by itself. So, and you can do that from Tokyo. You can do a day trip from Mount Fuji from Tokyo. Never done it, wanted to, but I got rained out by a typhoon, so I couldn't do that. But yeah, I mean, this shows you some, what do you call it? This shows you some onsen ryokans for that you can stay in. It's not all of them. You would definitely have to do more research on this kind of thing, but typically the stay in these ryokans are going to cost you a pretty penny, but it's worth the pretty penny. Let me see though. Let's just check really quick. Ryokan in Hakone. Ryokans in Hakone, hotels.com. Let's not go to hotels.com. Booking probably not the best place to do that. The Japan guest houses, this is one site you can go to reserve, what do you call this? To reserve ryokan stays. There's this, there's also Rakuten Travel. So you kind of have to like look around, because sometimes whenever you go to these hot spring, to the websites of these places, it's not the most user-friendly thing. And sometimes they don't take online reservations. It's kind of difficult sometimes, especially for the really old places, like that's been around for thousands of years, basically. But yeah, let's see. Let's just go to Hakone. That's on this site. It should be pretty easy. And it kind of shows you some that they recommend. It's probably not all of them, but there's already quite a few. And you can kind of see here on the price per person. They usually, when you stay anywhere in Japan, it's usually priced per person. It doesn't matter where it is. Hotel per person, hostel per person, Airbnb per person, ryokan per person. That's just how they price things there. And this is no different. And these ryokans will usually run you for 25,000 yen per person. What is that roughly? In today's money, that's probably about $200 or so per person per night. If we were doing 100 yen per dollar, that's gonna be upwards of $250 per person per night. But in today's money, it's probably closer to 200. And the reason for that is because there's quite a few reasons for that. The onsen itself, so what that money covers is the fee for entering the onsen, the hot springs. It also covers the breakfast and dinner that you get in the place. And whenever you do get breakfast and dinner in these places, they are not simple they're not simple food. It is pretty darn fancy. Pretty darn fancy and pretty extensive. Let's go to the traditional ryokan here. There's various ryokans. They're not old 100-year-old buildings. There's some newer ones that's a bit more modern, but for the and that looks like more of a normal hotel. But basically, what you get from these places is fancy food, a nice place to stay at, hot springs. For the most part, whenever you go to a hot springs, you want to look for something called a rotenburo if you want to do a hot springs, like outdoor hot springs. Otherwise, it's going to be indoors. That's what you look for, a rotenburo. So those are outdoor hot springs. Food is whatever is in season. Typically, the food that they serve for dinner and breakfast is whatever is in season. The menu will change each time. If you have any allergies, typically you would want to mention that before you book, or at least when you do book. That way they can prepare all this, because it does take time for them to prepare the dinner for all the guests that stay there for that night. But this is some things you can expect. The first ryokan experience I went to, I think the dinner was 7 courses over 2.5 hours, and I was freaking stuffed at the end of it, but it was so delicious. I actually do have pictures of that one. Let me see if I can find it. But it was one of those things that kind of hard to forget, to be honest. Let's see. I got so many food pictures here, it's a little bit difficult to sort through. Here we go. So this was, at least for the one I stayed at in Hakone, this was course number one of dinner. And as you can see, it's already it looks like a lot, or maybe I'm not sure if it's a lot for some people, but that's quite a bit. That's quite a bit of food for the first course. And this was, no, that's not second course, that's still first course. Where's my other stuff? Where is it? Second course. This was second course. So they got, I don't know how they do their courses, but depending on the place, there was one place I went to where they actually laid out all the food at once. And it wasn't as much as this, but it was still a decent amount. Like this one for sure had multiple courses, lots of food. That's basically what your money goes to, is the service and the meals. And breakfast could be something like this. Breakfast is just one course, so if dinner was too much for you, breakfast is quite a bit lighter. Usually has some sort of fried fish, some tofu, miso soup, and some light stuff on the side. The other place I visited, you don't think it survived past third course? It depends. Like I said, it depends on where you go. They're not all like that. They are definitely not all like that, but the one I went to, I didn't know anything about it. I just kind of reserved one that I could afford at the time. But the money was so, like, they gave you so much bang for your money. It was very, it was quite a bit. It was quite a bit. The other place I went to, this was all the food. This was all the food that you had for dinner. It's still quite a bit, but definitely not as much as the other one that I went to. I was kind of sort of disappointed, to be honest, to see this, because it was this was one of the inns where had a lot of famous ryokan around the area. But you know, it was what it was, and it was still a nice experience to visit, because don't think I've been to such a remote place before, and it was just nice to be able to go somewhere that most people didn't go before. I just like kind of going on those kinds of adventures. And breakfast was a lot more simple in this place, as you can see. Not a whole lot for breakfast. Just egg, fish, mostly veggies, stuff like that. But yeah, that's kind of what you can expect from the level of food and service you would get in these places. But the rooms typically are pretty nice. The food, like I said, is going to be different from place to place, also from season to season. So just because one place has certain foods, don't expect it in a different spot. Each one has their own different things. If you go to their website, so you can either go here, but I think you can like type in their names on a Google search and search it that way. Let's say this one. They might show up in like hotels.com or Expedia. I honestly would not go there. Booking.com, when you actually start thinking about where to stay in these places, Booking.com is honestly the best site ever. This is the best site to book stuff for like stays, because the main thing here in Booking, their prices are pretty competitive regarding depending on where you go and stuff. And this is not just for Japan, you can use this for all over the world. So, for Japan, this is where most people go to reserve. But yeah, let's see, what do they have here? So I think they have most of the other pictures that they had in the Japan guest house thing. I'm not sure exactly how Japan guest house works, but you can go there to get some ideas of onsens. And of course, a lot of this is like personal research that you do on your own time. But let's see, this is in Hakone, right? So this is in Hakone. And you can kind of see, so let's just say we are going with 3 people. check-in, check-out date, you can kind of already see that prices are kind of steep, but that's just kind of how it goes. But you're only going there for like 1 day. For 3 people, here for 3 people, you're looking at about $737, but that's between 3 people. So split that up between 3, you end up with a little bit over not even 250 each. Not even 250 each. That sounds like a lot, but keep in mind about all the stuff I said. But this is like your splurge day. Think of your onsen day as your splurge day for relaxation. It's like going to a fancy resort kind of thing. But like I said, booking. What's nice about booking is you don't have to pay ahead of time. Also, they have this free cancellation stuff. That's pretty standard throughout a lot of places in Japan. Free cancellation up to a certain date, and then that's when you kind of have to like make sure you're actually going to stay here, that sort of thing. Let's see. But yeah, whenever you're planning your trip, I would recommend at least 1 day in an onsen area, an onsen place, just to relax, and then you can go back to Tokyo and do the rest of your stuff. For 14 days, this would be my recommendation, something along these lines. Go to 2 or 3 places, stay a few days there, and then end in Tokyo. I feel like 6 days in Tokyo, or let's say 4 full days in Tokyo, is pretty decent. Just keep in mind you do lose the first and last day of your stay just because of travel. So you really only have the 12. Now, if you can do longer than 14 days, that'd be great, and we can definitely go into that. But I feel like if we did that, this stream would be so much longer right now. But yeah, if you guys want to like make a, what do you call this? If you guys want to make a Japan trip plan and submit it to me to look over for a future stream, maybe next week, let's say next week, we can do that. But I kind of want to go over one more thing before we finish out for today. I mentioned cost earlier in the stream, and this is going to come down to a few things. But the most expensive parts of your trip, especially to Japan, or really any international trip, is going to be the plane ticket. Now, what is a plane ticket to Japan going to cost? Depending on when you're from, it could be cheaper or more expensive. But let's just say for argument's sake, how much would it be to go to Japan? Let's pick a location. Where should we fly out from the US to go to Japan? I can use one of my old locations I live from, or we can pick from a completely different place. If you're flying to, hey, don't worry about it. Don't worry about your wallet just now. It's probably more affordable than you think, but the plane ticket is going to be the most expensive thing. No joke. The plane ticket is the most expensive thing. Everything else, once you get to Japan, is not as expensive as you think. Minus maybe the 1 night onsen stay, but that's worth it. That's a splurge day. Okay, let's just pick a major city to fly out from. We're not going to fly out from California. Try Toronto? Okay, let's take Toronto. Yeah, we're not going to fly out from California because holy crap, it's actually cheap in California. Crazy. Toronto to Tokyo. So normally when I do this, I usually just do Google searches to get an idea. I know Japan's gonna be open in by October 11, but we're not going to fly out at October 11 because that is less than a month away. We don't want to do that. Whenever you do any international trip, you want to book those 3 to 6 months out. I think 6 months out might be kind of expensive. It depends, or it might not change, to be honest. But no less than 3 months out, because if you do it less than 3 months out, you are also risking a lot of competition with the accommodations you are going to book, and you're not risking that. You're not competing with only the other travelers from overseas. You're also competing with the locals who know where the good spots are during the trip. This has happened to me before. I was planning a trip around a festival in Aomori, and I did not realize how popular it actually was and could not get a hotel a month before the festival started, or even 2 months before the festival started, or 3 months before the festival started, around the area I was going to go to, and ended up like 3 or 4 hours away from the town I wanted to be in. I still saw a festival, a smaller scale festival in the town I was in, but it was so far from where I originally wanted to go to that my plans completely changed. I didn't go to the town I originally wanted to go to and went somewhere else during that time period. It wasn't a bad thing, because happy accidents do happen during trips. But just keep in mind, if there's some place you really, really want to go to that's, let's say, gonna be popular and not outside of Tokyo, keep in mind there might be some other people, namely locals, that will eat up all the reservations and not leave you any spot to stay at. And they are very, very proactive about that. For argument's sake, for this plane trip thing, let's say 3 months. What is 3 months from now? 3 months is gonna end us up in... let's just go from here. 3 months is gonna end us up in December. I would not recommend flying to Japan in December, but okay. December to January, unless you are going to Japan for skiing or like doing an onsen hopping trip, do not recommend going at this time. It is gonna be freezing cold. Unless, okay, here's the exception. Here's the exception for going to Japan at this time. If you go to Okinawa, if you go to Okinawa at any time that's not summer, go there here. December, January, February, when it's cold everywhere else, Okinawa is going to be warm. Off season, everything's cheaper in Okinawa, not as much crowds, probably the best time. But yeah, let's say season. What season should we go in? Depending on what time of the year you go there, different stuff is going to happen. So around, I think, late March to April, that's when the cherry blossoms typically bloom. But the cherry blossoms really only have like a 2-week window, depending on what part of the country you're in at the time. Like, they only have a 2-week window when you'll see them in full bloom or even half bloom. And by the time that's done, by the time those 2 weeks are done, they die. The petals just go bye-bye. That's just how cherry blossoms work, to be honest. A better time to go to Japan is like in October to November. it's cooler, it's fall, the season, the leaves have turned, so everything looks like a nice shade of orange and red. You can also go in the summer if you want to hike Mount Fuji. Summer is actually the only time you can go there, because I think the hiking season for Mount Fuji, why will this not let me do that? The hiking season for Mount Fuji, I think, is July to September. If maybe July to early September is the hiking season for Mount Fuji. Otherwise, you cannot. Well, you can go there, but at your own risk, because it gets pretty windy and icy up there even during the summer. So the safest time for most people to go there is during that short summer season, that short summer period. But let's just say, yeah, 2023. 2023, and it does not let us go very far. Let's just say, let's go during April. Let's just say April. Let's go let's say like we're flying out on a weekend. We go for how many days do we save? 14 days. So let's say we go off as a Saturday, 1, 2, and come back on a also Saturday. Now, you may have a preference of airlines. I do have a preference of airlines, but from Toronto, honestly, this is really cheap. This is really cheap, 1,143. But again, you may have a preference of airlines. If you went with Air Canada, it's going to be different. It's going to be probably a bit more expensive. If you have a preference of airlines still, let's say that you want to go with a Japanese airline. The Japanese airlines you would choose are ANA, or where's Japan Airlines? Japan Airlines, JAL. These would be these airlines are actually super good as far as their service goes, and not that much more expensive than Air Canada, to be honest. So that's something to look at. Also look at your flight times. Anything reaching 24 hours is probably not a flight you want to be on when you go to Japan. It should if you're coming from North America, it should not take you more than 14 or 15 hours. Like this one, 15 hours, 15 minutes. That's a decent time. 19 hours, you would have to, I would question what's going on here, and it looks like we have a 4, almost 5 hour layover in, where's ORD? O'Hare International Airport. So keep that in mind. Keep your layovers in mind. You don't want to stretch all the way to 20 plus hours and have a huge layovers in between. That just makes for a terrible trip. Absolutely terrible trip. And anything that has, and if you go over 24 hours, you know something is wrong. You know something is wrong, and also you're paying too much, so don't do that. But yeah, I think depending on the day of the week you go to, I think the prices are a little bit different on the weekend. And depending on which weekend you go to, I think Google Flights is pretty good about showing you the prices and stuff. So if you're flexible on your days, you can probably let's say you leave on a Monday and you come back on another Monday, you could save a few $100s here and there, or it may not change much. It's also seasonal. It's also seasonal. 41 hours, no way, no one survives that. Actually, I had a friend that lives, or at least lived in, or they came from Brazil. I had a friend that came from Brazil, and for him, the flight from Brazil to Japan back and forth, one way, is like 30 something hours, and there's no way to make that shorter. But if you're coming from North America, it's not going to be that. But like I said, 15-16 hours is probably average time. for going to Japan. 18 hours also, as long as it's like, as long as your layovers are short, like 2 hours or less. 18 hours isn't bad. 20 hours is probably a little long, but yeah, that just depends, right? Depends on what time you go to the airport and come and arrive there. But you see these +1s right next to these times. I just let you know you are losing a day, and you are gonna get there next day, typically in the afternoon. That's just really a typical time you get in Japan, around 3, 4, 5 p.m. I don't think I've ever arrived at night. That's like 24-hour trip. No. But yeah, keep that in mind. Prices are seasonal. I think summer prices actually not that much different, to be honest. It really depends on what day you go. So play around with the dates, see what you can afford to do, see what you and like adjust your flight, your like departure and arrival times based around those. If you have some flexibility there, if you don't, then the price is what the price is. Like for me, I think it's going to be like a couple $100 more expensive here, unless I drive 2 hours out to a different airport. Do I want to drive 2 hours out to get a $200 price discount for my trip? That's up to me, and personally I would say no, just because I don't want to drive back. Going to the airport, okay, maybe, but coming back and driving 2 hours back after I'm done with my trip, I don't think I want to do that. I would rather pay that extra $200 and not do that. But that's me. But yeah, typically I think this is a good price for Japan. Usually, if you're coming from North America anyway, 14 to 1500, maybe upwards of 16, 17, depending on the season, is what you would expect to see paying for the trip. So let's just take the average here. Let's just put some numbers down here. So we're at cost now. Let's go for cost. Can't imagine a travel restriction lift not making prices skyrocket in the coming weeks. Actually, I don't think it will make the prices skyrocket right now. They want more people to come in. I don't think the price is gonna skyrocket because of that. What made the prices seem ridiculous before was going through the travel companies. Because with the travel companies, not only are you like doing the booking for your accommodations and flight, but you're also paying these people who are managing the trips. So because of that, the prices skyrocket. But if you're just doing it by yourself, it's not going to be that bad. And I'll show you some numbers now just to drive the point home. But let's see. So cost. Let's put a column here for cost, and let's just make an average price here, 1500 for the flight. So this is for the 1500 for the flight. And now part of this, we're gonna have to make some decisions. I don't know if we have time to make those decisions, but I can show you really quick a resource that would be helpful when planning some things. This one in particular, where is it? So for this one, there is an app for this. The website's not as good. It's called Navitime Travel. Basically what this is a hub for being able to plan your route around Japan using the Shinkansen and whatnot. There's a tourist pass called a Japan Rail Pass that you can use if you're going to multiple cities in the country, and it may or may not be worth it depending on your trip, especially right now when the yen is weaker. It may not be worth it to get the Japan Rail Pass, but before in the past, when the yen was slightly stronger, you can argue that the Japan Rail Pass is something that would help you save money on the trains. This is good for the Shinkansen, as well as most local train lines. There are some local train lines that you can't use this on, but basically what this pass does is you can get tickets for the Shinkansen. You must get tickets for the Shinkansen, otherwise they won't let you on. And also it lets you on the regular trains for free, basically, but you paid for it here. Normally when I get the Japan Rail Pass, I don't factor in the local train lines, because local train lines are kind of sort of like, I mean, they're kind of cheap-ish, if it maybe. I mean, the costs add up eventually, but you make some mistakes on where you get off. You like maybe pass a place and don't, or like go to multiple places in a day. So it's really hard to calculate that. So what I typically do when I decide whether or not this is worth it or not is check the major cities you're going to. Check the major cities you're going to. Here we're going to Tokyo, Kyoto, Hiroshima, Hakone, and back to Tokyo. Now you can also factor in the price for going from Narita to Tokyo. That there is a train that you can use a Japan Rail Pass on, going back and forth from Tokyo and the airport. So if you factor that price in, you can decide for yourself if it's worth it. But this resource, the website's not very good for routing, so typically what I recommend for that is get the app instead. Get the app instead, and I will show you what the app looks like. The app. Please show. Okay, here is the app. Let me close the website the browser really quick so you can see the app. But within the app, and I'm also going to close the text so that you can see that a little bit better. But with the app, it's the same thing as the website, but the search function for the routing and the maps is a whole lot easier. So with the app, this is probably going to be your #1 friend when getting around Japan. In regards to trains, you can use this for local lines, you can use this for Shinkansen. Basically what you do with this is you can change the time that you're going to depart. Let's say we're departing right now, but you can change the time to, let's say, tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning, whatever minutes, doesn't have to be exact. It'll pick the best route for you depending on those. And for the sake of calculating cost, you don't do the Japan Rail Pass ticket thing. Where is it? Oh, this would be this. You don't pick any of these passes, just so you know what the true cost is, because once you get the Japan Rail Pass, it does some routing and there's some restrictions on which trains you can use for the Shinkansen, but it's not too big of a deal for the most part. So we're gonna ignore tickets for now. You do want to change the transportation type. Sometimes you have to use a plane, but for the most part, let's say we're only using trains and buses. The Japan Rail Pass covers some buses and ferries. The ferry from Hiroshima to Miyajima, that's covered by the Japan Rail Pass. And JR buses are covered by the Japan Rail Pass. So we're gonna say buses are okay, ferries are okay. We don't want taxis, we don't want planes. So we'll keep it there. We'll keep it there. And if you're a slow walker, it'll also tell you, you can also adjust this for your walking speed. Let's say we're walking with a big luggage. You can adjust it for that. If you're very quick, you can also do it for that. But I would recommend on the slower side, so you give yourself plenty of time. Because when this thing tells you the train will arrive at a certain time, it will arrive at a certain time, and you only have like 2 minutes to get on or off. So trains are strict. You do not want to miss your Shinkansen ever. Ah, jeez. But let's start with this first. Let's start with this. We're going from... Oh. Why is my thing in Japanese? Okay, Narita. Narita, most people will be coming from Narita Terminal 1. So let's say Narita Terminal 1, and we're going to be going to our hotel would be, let's say, Asakusa. Asakusa. So for this one, we would just hit search, and it tells you how long it takes to get there. An hour 8 minutes total. It's typically an hour 8 minutes, hour 20, hour 30 from Narita to this area. If you're going to a different part of town, let's say Ueno, it'll tell you how to get there, how fast, and once you decide which route to pick, you can click on it, and it'll tell you all the stops that it'll go through. That way you know which stations you're gonna get off, which stations you're gonna get on. It makes it really easy to find that out. It tells you what platforms and whatnot. So this is really useful. This for like train trips. If you don't have this, it's going to be a much more confusing experience. I know this looks kind of intimidating if you're not used to seeing this, but this really does break it down a lot. You can use Google Maps if you want to, but Google Maps is kind of finicky when it comes to train stuff, so I tend not to use that. Google Maps, though, is useful for just walking. Say you want to walk from Shibuya to Akihabara, you can do that. I would use Google Maps for that. But if you're using trains, use Navitime. That's the best thing to do. But on this overview, you can kind of see under each one where the times are. It shows you what types of trains, what modes of transportations. As the more you use this, the more you get to know what the color coding means. But let's just say for if you don't have, so there's this thing called an IC card. IC card is like an infrared card that you tap on the rails. If you're from Toronto, that would be like the Presto cards. I don't know what they have in New York, but in most of Japan, it's going to be called the Suica. The Suica cards. Let me see if I can show that to you. Suica card. And I have a Suica card. I have the same Suica card as the first trip I went to Japan. You can basically use this thing for trains. That's what they're mainly used for, but you can also use this for convenience stores. You can use this in convenience stores, the 7-Eleven, the Onsens, the Family Mart. Doesn't matter where. This is your main card that you're going to get when you enter Japan. You get this at the you can get this before the train stations. There's like a booth right before the turnstile gate thing. And you can get it through there. It has English options so that you're not lost. And basically, you get this. You load it up with money. I think you can load it up to. I'm not sure how much you can load up to there, but I think I've loaded like $200 into one of these things because Japan is a very cash-heavy country. But if you don't want to carry a whole lot of cash, you put it in one of these things. Just make sure you don't lose it. This is going to be your lifeline. This is what you're going to be paying a lot of stuff with. So yeah. But if you're worried that you're going to lose it, you can put like smaller amounts in there. I think like in increments of 10,000 yen or something like that. Not 10,000 yen, 1,000 yen, $10. But yeah, keep this with you. Do not lose it. This will be what you use when you don't use your JR Rail Pass. And even if you do use your JR Rail Pass for going on trains, you get one of these anyway. Load some money in here, and use this to pay at convenience stores rather than taking cash out. And paying with that, because that is it's a pain to carry around. Cash is pain to carry around. It's not unusual though for most people over there to carry upwards of $200 to $500 worth of cash at one time. It just they're very cash heavy country. Credit cards not normally a thing, though more places are accepting it. But if you, let's say, go into a restaurant, you will need to bring some cash with you. Well, at least some Japanese yen with you in cash. Generally, my recommendations for cash is have a debit card that allows you to withdraw from an ATM overseas with 0 fees. That way you save money from that one. Because if you bring cash with you, like say Canadian dollars or US dollars, and exchange it at the money changer over there, you actually get less from the money changer because you have to pay fees to the money changer. If you bring a debit card, you can use that at the ATMs at the 7-Elevens, and you get the exchange rate as it is on the internet. For example, let's say the exchange rate is $1.40, 140 yen per dollar. If you go to a money changer, your exchange rate is probably going to be closer to like 120, 125 yen per dollar. So you lose money that way. If you do the ATM with a debit card and you use a no-fee card, the only fee you have to pay is like, I think, 300 yen, 350 yen for the transaction to withdraw money from the ATM. And that's it. There is a limit on how much you can withdraw in one day, but most people are probably not going to be withdrawing more than $200 or $500 in a day. So it's that's up to you how much you want to withdraw and how much you need to withdraw. But just keep in mind, for most places, have some cash with you, at least $100 to $200 worth of cash, 10,000 to 20,000 yen. Let's just put it in yen. 10,000 to 20,000 yen in cash, because there are some places that will not accept credit cards, so you have to use cash. Mom and pop stores will not accept credit cards. You have to use cash. Fancy restaurants most likely will accept credit cards, but just be sure before you go to a fancy restaurant that you have enough cash on you in case they don't. That's just how it works sometimes. That's just how it works a lot of times. But the Suica cards are basically for convenience stores and trains. There are some places that don't accept Suica cards. You just have to figure out what the local rules are, because there are some places where Suica is not compatible and it's like some sort of transaction issue. So either use cash for those places or get the card for that local area. Most of the time, I think in Hiroshima I don't think accepts Suica for their trams, so I had to use cash for that one, which wasn't too expensive, but it's something to think about. Anyway, got sidetracked. So flight. So we use Japan Navitime, this app I was talking about. So I can't imagine what happened to someone who didn't make all this planning. I know, right? And this is all the stuff I learned after my first trip, okay? This is just all the stuff I learned after my first trip and kept on figuring out as I visited Japan. So I know it's a lot of information right now, like especially for someone who's never visited the country. But I mean, that's what the stream is for. And if you have any questions while I'm doing this, please ask. Please ask. And also, if you want to, like I said, we can do this again next week, where you bring me a trip and I can tell you how viable it is and how much it's going to cost you if you don't do the analysis yourself. I actually enjoy planning trips, especially in Japan, because it's so easy. I mean, it's it's a lot, but it's easy to plan a trip in Japan because there's a lot of information that you can research and put together. But yeah, let's just say Narita to Ueno. The cheapest you're gonna get is like 27,000 yen. So let's just put train costs here really quick so we can total them up. Total it up. This is gonna be in. We're gonna put USD here, and this is going to be train's gonna be in yen. Whenever you look this up, so convert it to whatever currency you have. So 2710, let's just say, and we're gonna just keep that in mind. I'm putting it 2710 twice because I'm assuming we're going to be entering and leaving from Ueno back and forth to the airport when we leave the country and arrive the country. So I'm putting that in twice. That's not going to be too expensive, but your biggest expenses are going to be, let's say, from city to city, right? And you got to know what stations you're going through. Otherwise, it's not going to be as accurate, and you won't really know what stations you're going through unless you know where you're staying and what stations are near your where you're staying at. I think that's just kind of how it works. You can, I mean, you can always say Tokyo Station, but how are you gonna get it? Let's say you're staying in Ueno, and you can say you can leave through Tokyo Station, but how are you gonna get to Tokyo Station? You have to go through Ueno Station to get to Tokyo Station, or you can leave from Tokyo Station. Yeah. Usually you have to leave through Tokyo Station anyway to get to Kyoto. Now Curse Chef, now Private Travel Agent. What will be next? Actually, I feel like, I don't know. I just like planning for Japan trips. I don't mind doing it. I don't mind doing it. I find it fun. I don't know why, but only because it's a country I like to visit, and there's places I like to visit there that I haven't been to before. So we can do this again next week. I'll show you what my trip plans would be if I were doing it for myself, but we're just gonna try to do a quick and dirty right now to wrap this up for today. But yeah, let's say we're going from Ueno. This is our departing station. Oh, it also tells you what you can do in certain parts. So Ueno, and we're going to Kyoto. Now for the trains, the Shinkansen and the trains, the prices are static, so it doesn't matter when you go. There's no seasonal pricing for that, thank goodness. But Ueno to Kyoto, let's just start off with that. Let's see. So I wonder. Okay, so let's see. Fastest, fewest, cheapest. Yeah, let's not do cheapest. Cheapest would involve bus travel, so we don't want to do that. Overnight, so we want to go fastest route on this one. So from Ueno to Kyoto, we will be using the Shinkansen. We'll also be using like a transfer train to the Shinkansen. That's going to cost you 13,320 yen one way. Now, if you were paying this out of pocket, that is a lot of money. So keep that in mind. This is going to be our justifications of why we want to use a JR pass. The advantages of using a JR pass is if you decide not to go on this train, you can cancel the ticket. Like, make sure you go to the counter, tell them I want to cancel this, I don't want to go on this anymore, and you don't have to worry about the hassle of getting refunded, because refunds are kind of a pain to go through if you have to pay cash for it. If you buy a Shinkansen ticket, you really want to make sure you get on it. But if you have a JR pass, you don't have to worry about that. But right now we're just calculating base costs. Okay, we're just calculating base costs. So from Kyoto, we are going to, let's say, Hiroshima. So right now we're just going through major cities. to calculate our biggest expenses, which is the Shinkansen. We're not taking into account the small trips we're doing in between. Oh, did I not? Oh, the thing is not showing. Thing is not showing. Okay, here we are. So here, Hiroshima to Kyoto to Hiroshima, it's 10,000. It's not showing my capture mouse, right? Okay. So from Kyoto to Hiroshima is about 10,770 yen. So roughly 100 bucks. So let's just write that down. And then from Hiroshima to where are we going next? Hakone. Hakone is a bit weird. Sometimes the stations that you want to go to are not the exact names you're looking for. Like if you want to go to let's just put a station I know that throws a lot of people off, even me, even myself. If you want to go to Fukuoka, there is no such thing as Fukuoka Station, as you can see here. This is probably where Google Maps might help a little bit as far as picking the right station. But if you pick Karuka Fukuoka up here, you are not going to end up where you think you're going to end up. This is definitely not the correct place because Kuoka Fukuoka, if you check the map, is... Can I zoom out? No, that's not it. Go down. Kuroka Fukuoka is... Can I zoom? I hate BlueStack sometimes. I hate BlueStack sometimes. I just want to see where this is on the map. Let me see it on the map. It won't let me. Ah! Can I? No. Oh. No. Okay. Let's do Google Maps for this one. Google Maps. Google Maps. So we are going to, let's say, Kyoto to Fukuoka. It doesn't really say the station, but I think there's multiple Fukuokas here. But the Fukuoka that we want to go to is none of these, and it's being covered up. Does it show? The Fukuoka we want to go to is not Fukuoka Station because there's no such thing as Fukuoka Station in Fukuoka. If you do that, you end up far away from actual Fukuoka, which is not all the way here in Toyama. Fukuoka, if you actually want to go to Fukuoka City, it's a different station. Down here, you're looking for Hakata Station. This is something I had to get used to when I was planning a trip down there because I did not know about this. Usually the name of the town you want to go to is the same name as a station, except this one. I don't know why. I don't know why. But just be aware. And always double check with the map. If you're not sure that it'll take you to the right place. So, one little tidbit there. But it's I know it's quite a bit. It's quite a bit. Let's see. Back. Okay. Back. So let's just say, where am I right now? We are going from... Where have we gone so far? So we're in Hiroshima right now, right? So we went from Kyoto to Hiroshima to Hakone. This is the other weird one, kind of. Hakone is not Hakone Station. It is Hakone Yumuto. It still shows up as Hakone, but you have to do a little bit of research to figure out how do I get to my ryokan area thing. So Hakone Yamato, that's going to involve several transfers. It shows you 3 hours 16 minutes. It'll cost you about 12,000 yen. 12,090. And then from there, you can go back to Tokyo. So yeah, you also use this to figure out how much time does it take me to get from one place to another, and see if it's a trip you need to budget some time for. So Hakone Yamato to Tokyo, not as expensive, about maybe 3,600 yen at best. So this would be the cost for your major cities that you're traveling to. So if you total all that up, if you total all this up, it doesn't show because why? Sum this. It comes out to 45,000 yen. How much? Excuse me. How much is that when you convert it to Japanese yen? To US dollars. Let's just say US dollars. USD to yen. And let's bring that back up here. So right now, $1 US is about 144 yen, which is actually quite cheap for us. Not bad for the Japanese, good for us. But if you put the price you estimated here, you get about $312. Now this could change depending on the exchange rate months later. But let's assume that this still holds for later. Okay, good. Now we have a price for traveling between cities. What now? What now is it worth it? Is it worth it to get the Japan Rail Pass? And you can get the Japan Rail Pass from multiple places. The one I like to go to is this one, japan-rail-pass.com. This is the one I go to, and the front page automatically shows you this is how much for a 7-day pass, this is how much for a 14-day pass, and so forth. Typically how you would do this is, depending on how you want to budget this, you don't have to use the rail pass as soon as you get to Japan. You can actually select a start date. So back here in the Excel sheet, so let's say our start date would be the first time we go outside of Tokyo, which is this when we go into Kyoto. We can have it start on that day, and we can start using the rail pass that day. Before then, we would have to use cash and Suica to get around, which is not too bad. But if you look at the number of days you are traveling between cities during that day, if it's like over 7 days, you probably can't cheap out and use the 7-day pass. You might want to use like the 14-day pass. If you want to keep things simple and use the JR pass throughout the entire trip, you can. But if you look at the price here, it says $359 for the 14-day pass. So our estimated costs right now just for traveling in the major cities is $312, right? Now, is it worth it to get the rail pass? Here's where it may or may not be worth it. Okay, so this is our conversion. Oh, you can't see it. Let me put it over here. Let me put it here. Okay, I didn't realize you could not see all that. Okay, so this is your conversion, right? And the rail pass is $353. What is that difference? The difference of that is about $40. Now, you may think 40 bucks is like a savings if you don't get the rail pass, but remember what I said about the amount you pay for the trains when you travel around the city? This is where you may actually just want to get the rail pass. That $40 that you use to get around town would probably be enough to like maybe cover the travel between city. Like within Tokyo, if you go to multiple places in a day, this $40 will be eaten up so much that well, it might be eaten up pretty quickly. So it might be worth it just to get the rail pass, even just for simplicity. Like even if you do end up paying more with a rail pass, you may just want to get it for simplicity. Eventually, if you like go around enough, let's say around just Tokyo or Hiroshima or Kyoto even, but I think Kyoto uses some a different payment system for there, so you may not be able to use a rail pass there. Anyway, just within Tokyo for the days you're going there, this 40 bucks might you might use up more than this 40 bucks difference, and actually the rail pass might be cheaper. If you go to like, let's just say you go to like one more major city in between the trip, like between this trip, if you go to one more major city here, somewhere in between, then yeah, the rail pass would 100% be worth it. But that's just something you have to decide for yourself. Do you want to get the rail pass, make it simple for yourself, or is the rail pass too expensive? Should you go for it? But let's say we're going for the rail pass, just for the sake of argument and in budgeting this. There we go. Now, the other thing that goes into the budget. So this is the trains. So this is trains. This is how much you're going to be paying for the trains. The other part of the budget is how much are you going to be paying to stay in certain places. Let's say we put the onsen thing here. Let's just say $200 for the onsen. That's 1 day. Since it's getting kind of late, let's just make an estimate. Now, let's just make an estimate for how much things are going to cost to stay. Depending on where you go, let's say Tokyo. No, let's say Asakusa, because I like Asakusa. In Asakusa, I don't think it really matters what days. Let's just say we're staying there for a total of 7 days, including the why is it not letting me? Okay, let's see, how many days are we staying in Japan? Tokyo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or let's say Ueno, to make this accurate to what's going on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that's how many days we are in Ueno. Let's say we have 3 people, but let's just say 3 people for now. Now, typically when I do this, I like to make sure it's I don't care for the star rating, but I do want to make sure it's at least an 8+ rating on booking. That way you know you're getting a pretty good stay. Under 8 is fine, but usually 8 and above is also pretty good. At least that's my preferred. And you gotta keep an eye on what kind of places these are, because sometimes they're gonna be hostels, sometimes they're gonna be hotels. And if you go to a capsule hotel, it might be female only or male only, so keep that in mind. You might be able to get Airbnbs in here. You can also go to Airbnb itself. The price here, it looks intimidating, but think about this. That is 5 nights, 3 adults. If we do, let's just pick one. Let's just pick one of these. Hotel Monday Premium. Don't really like that place, to be honest. I haven't been there, but I don't really like staying in those kinds of hotels. What is this place? Hotel I'm Dormy Inn? Dormy Inn is okay. I've been to a Dormy Inn. But it's also kind of expensive if you look at the price over here. Dormy Inns are kind of expensive, but it's an okay stay. Ryokan Katsutaro. This is a different type of ryokan. This is probably actually a minshuku. Minshuku is like a smaller type of inn, but there's not going to be any onsen attached to this. It's just a traditional in with no fixings basically. So just keep that in mind. Ueno Residence Hotel. This is probably like a apartment hotel, duplex apartment. So like there's some places that rent out apartment style rooms if you want to go this route. I've done one of these before. It's actually pretty nice. You kind of get the living in Japan experience without actually renting a place. Yeah, and you're basically in the middle of a neighborhood, which gets you that homey feeling, which is kind of nice. So keep in mind if you're sharing, just make sure that you have the whole place to yourself or you're sharing with people, that kind of thing. If you go take a hotel, typically they don't have like multiple beds because Japan. Typically rooms will only have one bed, and that's good for 2 people. So make sure you're sharing with a bed with someone you are comfortable sharing a bed with if you're traveling with someone, or find like a hostel where you can actually have separate beds or someplace with multiple beds. Pretty wide range of prices. Yeah, it depends. It really depends on what you're looking for. I like hostels if I'm gonna be in an area for a short time. Apartment hotels are a good one. I don't really like the hotels in Japan just because they're kind of pricey and you don't get a whole lot of space with them. But if you can find a business hotel, business hotels are not bad if you're traveling alone. Business hotels is not someplace where you want to be if you have multiple people with you, just because they're normally meant for businessmen who are traveling from one place to another, and it's really only like for one person. And it's not bad. It's just, you know, you got to keep an eye on space issues. And once in a while, I don't know if it's going to be here, once in a while you will run into a love hotel that tries to put a listing here. Keep that in mind whenever you see a place that says adult only. That means it's a love hotel. I've never tried to go into one. Even if I could, they probably wouldn't let me in because I would be going in solo. You need at least someone else to go into a love hotel with. Even if you're not going to do anything, even if you're not going to be doing anything in there except sleep. Just saying. Just saying. But let's go with the apartment hotel for now. Where is that apartment hotel? This thing. How much would this cost per person? We only have this one room. How much does this cost per person? Where's my calculator? $977 divided by 5 nights. That's $195 per night. Divided by 3 people. $65 per person. That's actually pretty average for hotel. Normally for a place you stay in Japan, you can get as low as $20 per person to $60 per person is a pretty good price. If you go towards 20, you're looking at a hostel, and hostels in Japan are actually really good. So keep that in mind if you're traveling alone or at least one extra person. Hostels are a good option for that if you're on a budget. But if you want something a little bit more comfortable, definitely look into Airbnbs, apartment hotels, and your price range will probably be closer to $40 to $60 per person. But for the sake of quick calculation, let's just say $50. We'll break it even, $50 per person. And let's say you are traveling alone. Let's just say we're traveling alone. Hey Chris, welcome. Good evening. Good morning to you. We're just let's see, calculating for the Japan trip right now. But yeah, let's say $50 per night, and we are staying. How many nights are we staying? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're not doing the Hokone. 11, 12, and 12 nights. We're doing 12 nights, $50 a night. 12 times 50. So this is stay. So we are at, or I need a running total here. Total. Yeah, this was a whole stream. This was a whole stream, so don't worry about it. Let's just put it up here. Yeah. So all in all, just for your flight, trains, splurge day at the onsen, and stay with an average of $50 per night, you are spending about $2,600 for 2 weeks. I don't know if that's expensive for some people. It might be, especially if you're not used to spending that kind of money. But for a Japan trip in 2 weeks, that is fairly reasonable. Now, how much are you going to be spending on food each day? That depends. I mean, your food budget can go all over the place. Convenience store food is pretty cheap, and like probably one of your cheapest options. But I don't think you would spend more than $40 a day. I don't think you'd spend more than $40 a day. So let's say $40 times, unless you're splurging, $40 a day since 14. This is food. Bye, I have class. Okay, thank you for dropping by, Krista. But yeah, let's drag this down. Let's drag this down. Okay, so food, let's say $40 a day for 14 days. This can go up and down depending on what you do, but let's plan that for a food budget. You're up to 3,200. Souvenirs, that really depends on what you want to get. Honestly, it depends what you want to get, but if you want to, you can budget like $500 for souvenirs. Souvenirs, $500, up and down depending on what you're trying to get. And yeah, I mean, you're looking at under $4,000 for 2 weeks in Japan, which is actually not terrible. It's actually not terrible. So I don't know how much people are expecting, and this cost will definitely go up depending on how many days you travel. Like this is 14 days. If you travel for 21 days and so forth, that your plane ticket's not going to change. Your onsen stay is probably not going to change unless you go to somewhere a little bit more expensive. Let's say add $100 to a fancy onsen. Stay, let's just say 19 days because we lose a couple of days there. And then food, that goes up to 21. Let's just say souvenirs isn't going to change really. Even for 21 days, you don't really spend that much more. Like a whole entire week is roughly 4,500, maybe go up to 5,000 if you what do you call this? If you want to splurge a little bit. So honestly, your most expensive things here is, I guess, flight, train tickets, stay, of course, depending on how long you stay there and where you stay. But overall, a Japan trip is not gonna set you back like ridiculous amounts of money. Someone somewhere had a nightmare in Japan for $8,000 probably. Now that could actually happen if you go to like the red light district in Tokyo, Kabukicho, I think. I forget what the area is called. I forget what the area is called. But if you put yourself in a situation, and let's say bar hop. Excuse me, I need some water. If you put yourself in a situation where you might be scammed out of money. Money scams are not unusual in Japan if you're not careful, but they don't happen often. But they happen in very specific places, okay? They happen in very specific places, namely red light districts. That would be the main place that you would see them. Someone who is trying to get people into a bar, they get especially if they offer you free drinks for like free first drinks. What happens in some places like that is that they get you with a free drink. They bring you in, you get a little drunk, they might spike some stuff into your drink, and then they run your card for the night, and you end up paying $8,000 for that night. I've heard stories like that. I've never done it myself, just because I don't go to red light districts. It's just not my thing. So yeah, it could run you up like that. And I mean, you can get scammed for a lot of money that way. But just, I mean, if you're careful and don't do that kind of stuff, then you're not going to, what do you call it? You're not going to get into that situation. There are like places where you can drink and party safely in Japan if that's something you're into. Just make sure to ask the staff in the place you're staying at. They will know where to go. They will have suggestions of what to do. I know language barrier is a thing when it comes to Japan. Not everyone can speak English, but if you try to communicate and neither of you can speak the each other's languages, there's always Google Translate. There's always Google Translate, and that will get you through for the most part. The other thing, you can also use DeepL. DeepL is more accurate. So yeah. Other than that, the quick and dirty for tonight. The quick and dirty for tonight is some resources. I'm sorry, today's stream was a little bit all over the place as far as presentation goes. But the quick and dirty of it, you can have a fairly reasonable priced Japan trip, even for 2 weeks. Now this is a lot of money for a lot of people, but if you really think about it, it's fairly reasonable for this kind of trip, especially when most of your cost is coming from your plane ticket. So just plan accordingly, and if you have extra spending money, put that extra spending money to whatever you want to do, basically. But yeah, I think I need to wrap up for today because it's getting a little bit late, and I wasn't quite sure how long this stream was going to be. I had so much other points here that I wanted to get into, like, so I wasn't sure where we're gonna go with this, but if you look at this entire list that I have, how long to stay in each area be realistic? Like I said, 1 to 2 days in one place, and then you hop onto the next. Probably not good, but it'll probably be good for the train pass. You can definitely make your money back that way. Focus on one thing each day. We kind of touched on that. Where are you gonna stay? Hostels, hotel, Airbnb, Minshuku. I didn't really explain what that was too well, but we can get around to that another time, I think. How will you get around? Walk, car, train, subways, buses, taxi. We really didn't get into this, but just expect a lot of walking in Japan. You can drive in Japan. Just be aware of the rules for how, like, on your country, and can you use your license in Japan. I know for the US you have to go to like AAA to get a international driver's license and use that to like be able to drive there. If you, what do you call this? If you do the Mario Kart thing in Tokyo, you do need to get an international driver's license if you're from the US. I think Canada can use their license over there. I'm not sure. You would have to double check that. But yeah, you might have planned your trip a bit too well. Maybe. I do like min-maxing the time and cost kind of thing, but I know it's not something everyone does. I think we kind of touched on the costs. You can adjust costs and stuff like that. Review and revise plan is needed. That goes with anything. Like if you think your trip is too expensive, you can always adjust that. If you feel like you can splurge in certain places, yeah, of course, splurge, please splurge. You're on a trip, you may as well enjoy it, right? How to stay connected. Oh, this is a huge thing that I'm not sure I'll be able to explain too well. But there's two. Whenever you go over there, if you get a SIM card for your phone, you really can't. You don't have a number. You can only have data, and you know that's fine for the most part. The SIM cards you can get like in the airport. That's the main place you can get them, but also you can get them in like big camera store, not big camera stores, the yorobashis, the electronic stores in Japan. You can also get them over there, and they come in various data plans and prices. They're usually the most affordable thing to do. But if you have multiple people, there's this mobile Wi-Fi thing that you can get. Let's go back to the Japan Rail Pass thing. Internet access. Now, I wouldn't get a SIM card from here, though it is pretty cheap. It is pretty cheap here. And it's fairly reasonable for what you get. $23. And you get 10... and you get 10 gigabytes in 2 days. What? No. Fair use policy. Excessive amount of data is in short period. Okay. So you have like some data limits if you use a SIM card and stuff. Oh, wait. I didn't show it. Hold up. Let me also close this really quick. So this is the Japan Rail Pass site, and they have this internet access thing up here. Pocket Wi-Fi rental, SIM cards. You can get your SIM cards through here. I think it's actually pretty reasonable now. It didn't used to be. But you can choose how many days you want the SIM card to last for. Let's say 16 days for a trip. And then how many you want to get. But let's just say for one person. $23 for a SIM card that gets you basically 4G access. All the stuff here is basically planned out, but basically I think it's like this might be unlimited use, but you can only get data. Like I said, you can't get phone numbers unless you're like a long-term resident, which you, for the most part, you don't need to call anyone in Japan. If you have multiple people with you, use Discord. Use Discord or Twitch to communicate with each other. Or WhatsApp or whatever messaging app you prefer to use to communicate. Just make sure everyone has some sort of internet connection through SIM cards. But if you're fairly tight knit and you can also rent a pocket Wi-Fi to share with multiple people. This one is like a little bit more expensive if it's just for yourself. But if you have multiple people, then it saves more money that way. It's unlimited. It's unlimited internet access that works quite well also. So just weigh your options there, but that's the main way you're going to connect with each other. Japan does not have a public Wi-Fi. Keep that in mind. No public Wi-Fi in Japan, and much less so once you get outside of Tokyo. Much less so. The internet, though, if you do have a Wi-Fi, is pretty good. Unless you're maybe in a rural area that has a not so good connection. The ryokans also don't really have a good connection if they have Wi-Fi, so you end up using data for the most part anyway. But yeah, let's see, other than that, what else was I going to go over? Tips, many tips, cash on hand, we kind of went over that. Passport, oh, this one's important actually. Always have your passport on you at all times when you're traveling. Just in case something happens, it's a good thing to do, good thing to have. Mind your holidays and weekends, we kind of went over that. Be flexible in case of accidents or natural disasters. I don't think I really went over this, but just be flexible. If something doesn't pan out the way you expect it to, just, I don't think I should go too much into that. It's a little bit too much right now, especially at this time. Don't stress too much the details when you do your planning, but do make sure you plan something as far as what you're gonna do and when you're gonna be doing stuff. Yeah, a little planning is useful. Just like normal hotels in wherever you go to, you don't need to bring your shampoo, conditioner, towel. In some cases, actually, toothbrush. You don't have to bring a toothbrush because at least in the hostels, I think the hostels give you a toothbrush. I know the hotels will also give you a toothbrush. So, but it wouldn't hurt to have one just in case of emergencies. Just saying. Leave space in your luggage for souvenirs. Always. The souvenirs are big and bulky. You will need the space. Regarding souvenirs, keep an eye on the expiration dates because the expiration dates on those souvenir snacks can be pretty short. So yeah, just make sure that that you can actually get to it before it expires. Don't bring back meat. Seafood might be okay, especially if you're going back to the US. Meat is something that they will confiscate at customs when you come back, so keep that in mind. Seafood might be okay if it's like in some sort of packaging, so there's that also. Useful sites, booking.com, Navitime Travel. I wrote down Hyperdia over here, but it's like a older site for train planning and stuff like that. Not very useful. Well, it's still useful because it gets all the random train stations that you normally wouldn't get, but it's so hard to use. But I mention it here as a backup. Most of the time you'll be using Navitime Travel. For food stuff, you can use Tabelog. A lot of people recommend that for getting reviews, but honestly, Google reviews are also pretty good. A lot of Japanese people use Google reviews for restaurants and stuff, so either one works. Suikakeibo, this is an app for your phone to find out how much money you have left in your Suica. If you have NFC on your phone, which you should, this is very helpful. Otherwise, you most of the time you won't know how much is left in your card. So just keep that in mind. Food, you have the convenience stores, check reviews, videos, explore the local area, the usual travel stuff. For something fancy, like say you want to go to a fancy, what do you call this? Kobe beef steak place. You normally can't just walk in, or like a fancy sushi place. You can't just walk in. You have to get a reservation, and you might have to reserve months ahead of time through a website, or ask someone in Japan, maybe the receptionist at the place you're staying, to help you reserve said fancy place. So just keep that in mind. I've been to a couple of fancy places that you could walk into, but it's far and few between. Luggage. This is something I've learned over traveling, and will save you a lot of grief when going from one place to another, especially because if you're going to multiple places, you're going to be carrying luggage with you. That's just how it goes. There are lockers in the train stations where you can keep your luggage, and it'll be safe there until you come back. But I think they have like a 3-day limit, and you know, it does help lighten the load up in some places, especially if you're like going to an onsen place. You don't really need to bring all your luggage with you, so you can put it in a locker if there's one available and keep it there. Also, whenever you're shopping around, there's lockers you can keep your shopping items in if you're going to be going around Tokyo and stuff like that. You just gotta be able to look for them, but you can do that. But as far as your actual luggage goes, my main recommendation with that is don't pack too much. Pack very lightly. Pack only the essentials. Bring a backpack as a carry-on, because that helps out a lot. If you can get a hiking backpack, that you can use as a carry-on that you can check in later. That helps quite a bit. Let's see. If you're gonna bring a rolling luggage, bring maybe only one large luggage, because if you have more than one rolling luggage, it becomes very difficult to lug that around train stations and stuff. Just fair warning on that, as someone who has done it way too many times. So yeah. And a smaller bag. If you're a girl, you can bring your purse, put your personal items there, put your passports there. If you don't like purses, you can have like a small backpack, that's fine too. Or if you're a guy, it now might be a time to get a merce. I don't know. Get a merce or a small messenger bag. That would be a good thing to have. Just so you can have like passports and small stuff as you walk around. Because you're not going to be bringing your luggage with you, but you do need some pockets to keep certain things in. And sometimes your pant pockets and is not going to be enough. Jacket is probably too hot in certain times of the year. So having a small bag is recommended, and everyone does it over there. Even the guys do, so don't worry about it. Okay, you'll just be blending in. You'll just be blending in. But yeah, I think I gotta wrap this up for today. If you guys have any questions or for me that you want answered, or things that you want me to cover in a future Japan type of stream, put that in the comment after the stream is over, please. That way I know what to plan for. And if you guys want me to look at your plans for a future stream and have me evaluate it on stream, please let me know, and also in the comments after the stream is over, so that I can plan for it, and we'll have a session of how practical is your plan, how much it's going to cost you, kind of thing. So yeah, we'll do that. But we can do that if we, but I might do another planning Japan stream, what I would do on a 21-day trip, and we'll go through that kind of thing. We'll see. We might be doing it again. But it is spooky month next week, so we'll be doing spooky month stuff when that happens also. So yeah. I don't think I have anything else though. I don't think I have anything else. But yeah, I think it's time for us to call it a day. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for watching. I know it's a lot of information today, and I'll try to summarize the helpful links and stuff in the description afterwards. But yeah, if you guys like this stream and want to see more, please subscribe, like, and all that YouTube stuff. I definitely want to talk more about Japan stuff. Maybe not necessarily planning, because I know it's overwhelming for some people. But I do like talking about Japan stuff in general, whether it be planning or certain places in Japan to go do, and you know what might be out there other than Akiba and all the stuff in Tokyo. Because for me, the stuff outside of Tokyo is like the best stuff ever, for me personally. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Get some rest, and I'll see you all next time. I'm not sure when next time is gonna be. Hopefully this weekend. We'll see what happens this week. But yeah, I'll see you guys. Thank you all, and have a good rest of your day. Goodbye.